Hello.
Hello.
I'm Alice, and this is Mark, and this is Memetic Rhetoric Podcast, and today we're talking about the 90s, the early internet, and the culture therein.
As it applies to the present-day internet, and Alice is going to be taking fat rips from her dank vape.
Yeah. Today we got weed number. I don't know.
Weed number. The strain is weed number. Does it make you see numbers?
Oh no, I just didn't know what strain it was, so I said something random to make it. That's what you're supposed to do when you mess up on air. You act like you didn't mess up, and then everyone believes you. And you say something random like weed number.
Yeah, it's the bit. You go with the bit. You know, when they in the 90s, you never knew what weed you were getting, so you would just say, it's weed. And this is back in the 90s. It was where we're starting.
Then that was back when parents spread the lie that your weed was going to be laced with heroin.
Right. What happens when you smoke heroin?
You get high.
Do you get, what kind of high do you get?
I don't know.
Have you ever smoked heroin?
Not intentionally.
Did you accidentally
not
smoke
knowingly.
heroin?
Not knowingly. I've heard they put it, sometimes they'll put it on other things that I have smoked that I don't test for because I'm stupid.
Do you think you've smoked heroin before?
I don't know. I haven't actually looked up I don't know.
Oh. I heard that it's
I have so little interest in opiates that
I've never had an opiate in my life.
Proud of you. You never sneak a couple out the trash?
That's
where they put them. I don't know. I don't know where you get opiates from.
You get opiates from Afghanistan.
Oh, shit, can you hand me that medicine bottle?
Or the pharmacy. Here's your medicine.
I forgot to take it this morning because I got excited that you were coming over.
Oh my gosh.
This is the medicine for my intermittent explosive disorder, so I don't kill people on the street.
Do you mind if I say what it is?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's lamictal or lamotrigine.
Sure is.
It's used as a mood stabilizer. It's also an anti-seizure medication.
And by mood stabilizer, he means you're going to be happy all the fucking time and nothing else.
Yeah, it doesn't allow you to feel other emotions. You can only feel happy. And she is smiling so big right now, you can't see it, but she's Lamictal is making her feel great. Lamictal also sounds delicious to me.
I know the camera's not on, but the government's still watching.
The government can see you through your voice.
That is correct. And the two webcams.
Oh yeah, and the two webcams pointed at us that they're hacking right now. Because actually we're basically in Guantanamo Bay right now with how much technology is surrounding us watching us.
Yeah, you got Virtual Boy. You got a PS4.
You have a Virtual Boy? What? Yeah. Oh, you do. Oh no, I knocked over your Lamictal.
Oh no. That means it's...
Alice has a Virtual Boy. Oh my god. You do.
I take it means you don't watch any of my content.
They made Wario Land for Virtual Boy. Wario existed when they had Virtual... how long has Wario been around?
Since the Game Boy Mario.
That's right. I think I remember. I actually remember playing the Game Boy Wario game. It was really good. I thought it was because he, charges into stuff.
I used to work at a Game Crazy.
Yeah?
And they used to give me, little free swag, and for some reason this was the only one I haven't sold from, PlayStation 3 era called Lair.
Is that,
It was so bad, it became a meme. But it was 2008, so nobody remembers it anymore. But I remember it.
That was actually really, I think the late, because we'll get to that. But the late aughts were kind of a dark era for video games, the PS3 era.
PS3 has no games.
Yeah, they
gotta get on that PS Triple,
It didn't have any games. I thought it was when I saw Lair, I thought it looked like there was that game called Deep Down or whatever. It ended up being a pile of garbage.
So do you know how to log into Windows 3.1? Do you remember Lotus Notes? How about OS2 Warp?
Let's see.
Remember when the government crashed because we couldn't figure out the prices of oranges?
All this and more on topic. I don't remember my first computer was a DOS green screen box. I was probably like 6 years old.
What brand is that?
Something. It was an IBM.
Say the brand closer to the mic, honey.
It was like an actual IBM like green screen, which means I'm like fucking ancient decrepit.
So my first computer was a TI-83.
Like a Texas, it was a TI-83. That's a real computer.
By the dictionary standards, that's a computer. Okay, so I knew kids who would program their own video games on a TI-83. If we're counting what Ray Kurzweil counts as a computer, that's a computer.
It is a computer. It computes. If you
then, we also kind of thought of that as a computing device.
It is.
Right. Like, we would be like, hey, maybe I could make games on my TI-83 for people to play.
Yes.
Now, everyone's just like, oh, graphs.
Right. No, that was the TI-83 was pretty amazing if you were in school at the time, because you could actually write boobs on it, and it would say boobs instead of having to punch in the numbers to write boobs. That was a huge leap in writing boobs in class and showing all your friends.
I think you mean 60065?
60065.
Yes.
That was one of the earliest incidences of hacking that I can remember as a child.
If I'm ever allowed to drive again, that's going to be my license plate.
Yeah, you can pay the government money to have boobs right side up. They'd have to. So
it'll make sense after I flip over.
That's what I'm saying. Is when you get into your car pileup and your car's flipped over and the first responders show up, they'll be like, "Holy shit!" Sick reference. As they pull out the jaws of life, they'll be like, they'll be laughing. I don't remember how to log into Windows 3.1.
But first you gotta push the button, or you gotta unlock the case first.
Yeah, you need a physical key. Something that current hardware is lacking is a physical key. You have to stick.
You know what your mom and early computers have in common? They both take up a full room.
Oh my god, my mom's actually like anorexic and probably dead. No, I don't think she's anorexic. She's just into health food. But that I mean, if she had been morbidly obese,
rest in pieces.
Yeah, please. If anyone wants to kill my mom, you can do it.
In Minecraft.
You can find her on Facebook. I'll post her name on my Twitter.
Is that doxing?
Yeah, you can. I'm actually thinking of doxing my mom on my Twitter to see if someone will actually go like harass her house. It'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
I think she has stuff you could steal too.
It'll be kind of like on Jackass what Bam Margera did to his dad.
Yeah, but I hope you like actually hurt her.
But like the digital version.
Yeah. The digital version where you set my mom's house on fire.
You're like the Jackass of the internet.
Yeah, but like more dangerous and legally culpable because you would actually like set my mom's house on fire and kill her.
Because like murder is illegal still.
Yeah, I guess.
Except in Texas.
Except in Texas, you can kill anybody you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have like 78 guns, you can use all the 78 guns you've got to kill people.
I got 78 goetic demons. Does that count?
Do they? Can you ask a goetic demon to get you a gun?
You can ask it anything. That's the beauty of made up stuff, right?
Yeah. It'd be funny if you would. I'm gonna become a Crowleyist so that a demon will get me a gun, so I don't have to register my firearm with the U.S. government. I think it's a good idea so that it's untraceable, right? Because they have to answer the legions of hell.
Yeah, then you get arrested for something else, and you have to explain to the cops that Aleister Crowley manifested me this gun.
Yeah, so go blame him. You can't trace...
Jimber, speaking of early computers, do you remember there's this video game called Shin Megami Tensei, where they summon demons out of the computer?
Yes, I love that game.
And I felt like that whole concept kind of informed my kind of perception about what computers could be as a kid.
Yeah.
Because, like, fucking demons coming out of them, dude. Like,
It was actually really, at the time, because early computing was the realm of, people who had no social life. And it was thought of as still, like, a really computing is, I don't think people think of computing as a very technical thing anymore. It's a user-friendly experience. That's like one of the biggest differences between now and then.
When they do think of computing as a technical thing, they're usually thinking about those assholes who want to remind you that they can install Linux from source.
Yes, exactly. Or like one of those weird ass versions of Linux that like you have to hate yourself in order to even attempt.
Well, it used to be you had to hate yourself to even like want to learn how to use a computer.
That is correct. And actually, I think that's why early like people who like us were into computing because we kind of hated ourselves.
It was also a good way to get approval from the adults.
Yes, it was. I agree. Did you also get approval from your parents for being?
Well, I was raised around computers. My dad had a government.
Your dad is like a genius.
He had an NSA job, and my mom worked for the state. So I was around universities, and like my dad was like a programmer, Amiga,
right?
All sorts of stuff.
Right. So it was natural.
So, but I didn't have one at home because we were poor. So we like come to college to use it. So I only used them in like academic ways, which meant a lot of reading just stuff. Before Wikipedia, before Google. Mm-hmm. So it was like on WebCrawler looking at Dragon Ball Z websites discussing history of every episode. So I was like 9.
Right. Wait, around what year was it that you were discussing DBZ on the internet?
97, 98.
That's very, like...
99 in GeoCities chat. ChristianForums.com, Unrivaled. Well, it was Dragon Ball /GT.com back then.
Because the late 90s were the... Because, okay, my first experience of actually using the internet was just through school. Because obviously the DOS computer, there was no way to connect the DOS computer to the internet that we had. It was through dial-up. It would have been through dial-up. But I didn't have an internet.
You didn't have Wi-Fi?
When did Wi-Fi... I don't actually remember when Wi-Fi became...
I remember we had a Linksys WRT45. The little blue ones. Little blue deals back in...
That was like the aughts.
2004, yeah.
Yeah. That's
the first time I remember Wi-Fi even existing.
Right.
But that was just back when like it was B and G.
It's one of the things that that defined. One of the things I wanted to focus on was the aughts specifically for a particular reason. But like if we're starting with the 90s, that was...
Well, you can focus wherever you want. I'm stoned as fuck.
I know.
I'm just trying to hold on. You're
holding on really well.
Thank you.
For someone who's stoned out of who is just vaping so much right now.
I'm not vaping that much.
You're vaping so much.
It's been 10 years since I've done a podcast, and it's been like a week for you.
Yeah, I was on Cuteness Unit, and I did a really bad job. But
I used to do a podcast called Black Flower Music Podcast, and Pause or Continue in like video game communities in the late 2000s.
In the
late aughts, yeah.
Which is significant because podcasting was not big back then.
Well, you couldn't get paid for anything back then, which is why I gave up on life and started doing real world stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Because YouTube podcasting, I did that for fun while I was in college. And I graduated college and my life fell apart because that's what happens when you can't get money after college.
Yes, correct.
Thanks, Biden, or is it Obama? Who's to blame for my problems? Maybe I am. I don't know. Anyway, computers.
I think everybody is blaming Obama for pretty much everything at this point.
I still call my phone Obama phone.
It is an Obama phone. Obama's responsible for like everything that is like the present day.
Yeah.
Everything. It pretty much traces back to Obama. I think. Even liberals blame Obama. Conservatives blame Obama.
Historians will look back at 2008 and they'll change the calendars to be OB and AB for or BB before Obama. God damn it! You know
BB,
what I mean.
AB and BB.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But it's like Latin. Before Obama, like
Anti-Baracus.
Yes, Anti-Baracus and what's the other one?
Barack. It's just Barack.
And Barack Obamas.
But if it was Latinized, it'd be
Obamas. Yeah.
So the early aughts, you're thinking like Second Life, SimCity 2000. I don't know.
Because one of the things that the thing I wanted to focus on was I was thinking about because the current day internet has a bit of an obsession with old internet. Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah.
Like, there is an obsession with...
I watch these music videos by these indie pop artists, like Yule or Magdalena Bay, and like their videos are all trippy and like very 90s, early 2000s. Like, I just got Windows ME and I'm messing with my Winamp skins vibe to it.
And then it crashes because it was a complete piece of shit.
It's because you weren't running the best file format, the Real Media files.
Oh, right. I remember... Wait, what? I remember Real Media... Their media files were so garbage.
Remember, I used to encode back in the SoulSeek days, early 2000s. I used to encode back when I ran a ripping group on SoulSeek.
Yes.
I used to, before I did that, I used to run everything in WMAs, and so when I started doing my ripping group, everyone was complaining so much about WMAs. I'm like, but it's lossless, and my computer does it.
Right.
Then I started running everything in FLAC. Anyway,
why were they upset about WMAs?
I don't know. It was just my early Windows 2000, like Windows 98, 2000 computer. I had Windows 98 and then XP. And I didn't have the internet on those computers at the time, so I was just ripping everything as a Windows Media Player.
Yes.
That's all you had. And then for a while, that's all they let you do.
Yes.
Was WMAs.
So you didn't have any other option.
Yeah, so I'm flooding up the internet with all these WMA files of my library. You could tell, like, how young, like, you'll see stuff on if you go in my SoulSeek now, and you see like WMA files, you're like, oh shit, Alice was a fucking like minor.
Yes.
When she made this, like, you don't see. It means I ripped it basically. I don't know.
Yeah. When you were a minor, I thought you meant literally a minor, like a data minor, but
I do that too.
Age-wise, because both. Okay.
Yeah. I do like run several Discords and forums
and you do a lot of data mining.
Yeah.
And you mostly make your money from selling our information.
Exclusively make my money, so please don't leave me. Thank you.
She needs the money, so just keep providing your personal information.
Yeah.
But the current day internet, it feels like has an obsession with old internet, and that's why I wanted to talk about the aughts specifically, because the aughts were like I don't know what the word is. It's sort of like they were like the inception point for current day internet, but aesthetically and like referentially, a lot of people are like obsessed with having been on the internet at that time, with the aesthetics of like late 90s aughts computing, and go ahead.
It's kind of where the online social contract and like user experience like kind of set its flag in the ground.
That's right. I agree completely. Because if we want to talk about being on forums in the 90s, it was not a connected. I mean, it wasn't a networked experience like you think of today. If you were on forums in the 90s, it was things
somebody told you about it.
Right. It was.
Or you went to a Waffle House and saw it posted on a board or a library.
It was literally networked through physical media still, because you didn't have the connectivity between web pages. The best you could do was like link, right? Like you could link from your forum to another forum, or you could that was like the only way to actually connect two places.
Yeah. I mean, we had search engines. They just weren't Google.
Right. There were those, like, I remember there were a bunch of them, and a lot of them died out.
Yeah, like Alta Vista, Web Crawler, Ask Jeeves. And,
at least when I was a kid, I didn't understand why there were multiple search engines or even necessarily what they did. But I guess a lot of them died out because that's kind of the point. Like, not all of them had to exist. Like, they were all basically trying to do the same thing, compete with each other, right?
Sounds like other industries.
Yeah, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like some other industries?
Yes, it does.
So also at that point, to be online, unless you were like at a university that had some sort of advanced because even pre-DSL, in order to be on the internet, you had to hog your like local resources.
Well, that's what I did. That's what I did at MTSU. Because they were hooked into the backbone of the internet,
right?
OC, whatever it was, the real deal. And I was running torrents around their firewall using UDP tunnel through in 2005.
Right. This was, torrents.
And I was getting for 2005 speeds, getting 2 megabytes per second.
That's crazy.
It was crazy.
That is insane.
That is out of
on upload
control. 2 megabytes per second.
8 down.
Well, because your standard internet connection at that time was what? Oh, was that DSL was a thing at that point, I think?
The people who were on regular computers were getting 15 kilobytes per second down.
Right. That's nothing.
I actually got in trouble with IT because they were like, "You're literally killing the internet on campus for this like BitTorrent competition I was in."
When you say killing the internet,
yeah.
So this university, at that point, the internet was a limited structure, correct?
Correct.
It was a limited amount of data on physical machines running at like certain places.
I was stressing the network. People were complaining about it being unusable.
Are you talking about for just the internet at the university?
Yes.
Or the internet?
The local network.
The local
university network.
Okay.
Where like 30,000 students went.
Right.
So I don't know how many would be living there, but...
But that's still a significant... I mean, at that point, a university like was still a significant chunk of the internet, period. Like the existing internet.
Right.
Because that's where like most of the big data transfer stuff was happening, was universities looking up things.
Yeah.
An actual like user experience at home was, you didn't really, I guess, need more than like 15 kilobytes or a certain amount of, because you weren't doing that much.
Yeah, when I was finally forced to go to the IT department in person to get my internet turned back on.
Yeah.
After getting, well, obviously they found out something.
Right.
Was happening from that IP. I had my MAC address changer, but anyway.
I mean, they would have known what they were doing on their end.
They kept telling they didn't. They really didn't.
So they didn't actually. What ended up, you think, flagging you in the end? Like, how did you get found
Getting
out?
back on Windows.
They like.
I was dual booting.
Oh, I see. So they were able to trace it back to the second boot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they can scan that stuff.
Right. So basically, you just had to get back. You had to launch a computer so you could do stuff. Like you had to boot up your OS so you could do things with all the data that you were.
I was just torrenting stuff, uploading torrents for this competition where whoever got the most upload in a week would get a gift card to like CD Japan or something like that.
Did you win it?
Yes, I did.
You won it, but you also got in trouble.
I won it by a landslide because of this backbone to the internet thing.
That's amazing.
And then I got my internet shut down, yeah.
No, that's really significant. I mean...
I stopped getting caught after that.
It's a big learning experience. Yeah. To basically siphon the entire university's
But you couldn't do that anymore. Because they all have fiber optics and like do they? Well, we have like terabyte internet now, right? Not terabyte, gigabit.
I think so.
Like for personal users, I can't imagine a university would be like struggling for me just doing like a torrent thing. They've also had like 30 years or 20 something years to like learn about that's probably the first time the university had to deal with something doing like that, like doing that kind of thing. I might have exaggerated a bit. They said it was the dorm I was in. I was affecting the dorm. Still, just part of the university. Right. But that's still like the whole housing unit. You had basically hogged the entire internet for that whole housing unit. That's still pretty significant. Why do you think people? Is it inappropriate to say Zoomers are bringing back OO's core or OTS core? No, I think that's correct. I think that's absolutely who's fascinated with it. Yeah. Because when I think about it, I think I don't say cringe, but it was like not a fun time. It was pretty cringe. Is not inaccurate. It was. I remember my parents saying stuff like this about the 80s when like 80s stuff was coming back. They were all like, "Oh yeah, there's not a lot about the 80s worth remembering. I didn't enjoy it very much, right? Or whatever." Same with the 90s and whatever. So, but all when I think of those, I don't remember liking much of it. I remember it being like, oh, pop music's whiny now, rock music's whiny now. Yeah, that's right. Like, 9/11 made us all really fucking sad, and I hated every minute of it. There was nothing about that era when I was alive in it that stuck out to me as a potential signifier for the future. There was very little distinct about the aughts at all. To me, anyway. Like, I remember thinking during the aughts,
I have no idea how someone would retro this era, because nothing about it seems distinct or aesthetically, like, things seem really muddy to me compared to the 90s.
One of the things I noticed is that, like, it doesn't even seem like the 90s ended till about 2002.
Right, which is also kind of true of the 80s, because the 80s aesthetic seemed sort of smudged into the 90-91.
It was around then that also, like, as far as aesthetics goes, 3D stopped being immature around 2005.
Right.
I would say. And so, like, the early 2000s stuff, a lot of it we don't want to go back to because it's been superseded by stuff we have now. Like, I think a lot of it, like, we remember it fondly because it was so new, but, like, it doesn't hold up anymore.
Yeah. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of, like, that?
Like Final Fantasy VII?
Very crude looking.
Yeah.
But it
has a great story, so people, I guess it has a great story. I don't know if everyone agrees, but people keep going back to it because they grew up with it.
Yeah, and I think people are fascinated by, like, the pre-rendered backgrounds and stuff. Like, they think that's pretty, but the actual, like, moving graphics were absolutely...
Well, have you played Inscription?
No.
Inscription, the card game with the...
Oh,
the FMV card game. Roguelike?
Not yet, no.
Hey, well, it has, like, early 90s vibes to it, too. It doesn't have to, but it, like... I don't know.
Purposefully...
Well, yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. Like that weird 90s FMV vibe that, like, nobody likes, but you... But I think that's one thing about these nostalgia core things, like aughts core that the Zoomers like.
Yeah.
Is that they're taking something that is admittedly cringe and finding something in the trash to make something new out of it again. So when we see that stuff, we say, oh god, that looks weird. Why would we want to bring this back? But they're just finding something shiny in the trash what we consider trash.
I value that. I've never had an issue with that.
Yeah.
The thing that I think, like, the aesthetics of the aughts, I actually value the fact that they have found unique aesthetic characteristics to the aughts to mine, because when I was alive then, I really didn't think that people would look back on that era and be like, this is a distinct time. Like, basically, like, the NSYNC boy band era is the last time where I thought, well, this really has a look to it. And then after that point, I was like, there were, like, the aughts were, like, 10 years of, like, Limp Bizkit into, like, a very muddy sort of, like, I guess it was, like, the My Chemical Romance sort of, like, era of like, weird pop emo stuff that was, like, now people are actually, like, looking back on fondly. A lot of people talk about it, but, like, I remember all the people I didn't liking that stuff. Yes, exactly.
And me being like, ugh.
Well, in the aughts,
like Jimmy Eat World and, like, Thursday and, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, no, Thursday's
no, that was good. Right. Well, no.
So it's just stuff. Some bands, I don't know.
It was like I think that was the era when, like,
Dashboard, Confessional, Jimmy Eat World, Bright Eyes, stuff like that.
Like Death Cab for Cutie, and when we're talking about, like, musical aesthetics and things like that.
Modest Mouse.
Yeah. The aughts were an era when there was a very contentious sort of, like, contentiousness between being genuine and being, like, being seen as a highbrow person. Is it, like,
you remember back when listening to Radiohead made you highbrow?
Yes. And no, legit, like, it's I really like that Zoomers are making fun of Radiohead and how stupid it is, because for a while, listening to Radiohead was like a public indicator of your culture and your appreciation of music. And we're both noise musicians, so, like, except Alice. Alice only makes speedcore.
I exclusively make Boston chiptunes.
She exclusively makes Boston chiptunes. I am a degenerate noise artist. So during that time, like, in the aughts, I was listening to mostly, like, Throbbing Gristle and stuff, and, like, I was listening mostly, like, industrial music, and I thought of most of what was happening aesthetically in the aughts. I was like, that's so lame, and like pretentious. There was a big pretentiousness, like view between like low and high culture was very divided at that time.
I was listening to a lot of like My Chemical Romance, AFI.
Yeah.
ISIS, Neurosis.
And that, I think in that era,
Blood Brothers.
People,
a lot of Blood Brothers.
Would
a lot of Cursive.
Get and J-Rock.
Visual K.
Yeah. Or like if you listen to Malice Miser in the aughts, people thought of you as a fucking dweeb. Like they didn't want to talk to you.
Yeah, they did. I would show up to school with I would show up to school with my Duran Gray, Malice Miser, and others Visual K bands.
Yeah.
They would like some of the girls would make fun of me, but like I was that asshole who was like, okay, look, I'm into really cringe shit that my parents made fun of me for so long, but I know if you just go and pretend everything is cool. So I was like, I made everything cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's actually
because I knew that it wouldn't, but I was already in online communities back then that I knew somebody supports me. I didn't give a fuck what they thought, and that attracts people.
That you can make it work for you.
Yeah.
I think in general, a lot of people, like, if you were into that stuff, you were thought of as a dweeb.
Well, you feel alone, and you don't, and you're not going to speak up for yourself. But, like, I already knew I wasn't alone.
Right. I think we had kind of similar experiences, because I went to alternative learning school, so, like...
Yeah, because you're special?
Because I was, it's a school that in Portland, the joke, it was, because the initials, the acronym for the school is MLC, and they used to call it Moron's Last Chance because it was so easy to get in, and when you got in, everything was a pass, no pass, so you could, like, fucking do no work and still pass all your classes. If at the end of the class you just gave all your, like, you just slapped a bunch of work down from the teacher and be like, look, here's my fucking thesis. I passed my, like, English class by slapping down, like, 50 pages of poetry that I'd written over the last 2 months and been like, here, this is my final project, and the teacher like gave me a glowing pass, and I entered college with a above 3.5 GPA, even though I did not know how to study, like I had never studied in my life. So yes.
I don't want to out your.
We're very special.
Didn't you have Didn't you have issues paying attention?
I mean, I still have extremely bad ADHD. Yes.
Yeah.
But nobody knew back then. I just thought it was. I had no idea. I was never diagnosed or anything. And my parents are useless, so they just thought that I was lazy.
They were giving, in the early 2000s, they were giving all the kids Ritalin back then, I believe.
Yeah.
There was even a band called Ritalin Kids.
I really wish I'd been in on that, and my parents hadn't been, like, my mom wasn't a hippie piece of shit who would have given me Ritalin, because that would have been, like, changed the whole course of my life. I might not be sitting here. I'd probably be making millions of dollars somewhere.
So my music journey?
Yeah.
High school... 2000s.
Yeah,
I was listening to like mainstream stuff like Daft Punk, Gorillaz, System of a Down.
Yeah.
So like 8th grade, freshman year. But once I started getting internet and I started listening to like Visual K, but I was already doing music journalism in like freshman high school, 2001, 2002, yes. Because we had a journalism department at our high school and we wrote for the school newspaper, and they sent us music to review.
Okay.
So I was.
What would they send you?
Me and my friend Sam Donnelly would make fun of all this stuff a lot.
Like Pitchfork style? Like back when Pitchfork was first starting?
Well, we didn't know what Pitchfork was.
No, you wouldn't. But like in that, because originally Pitchfork would trash albums like in a manner you would think of as trolling.
Well, a lot of this was like cheesy early 2000s alt-rock.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. What did they send you? Like,
well, they had stuff like And You'll Know Us by the Trail of the Dead, which is still around, and I don't know if they don't suck as much, but there was like...
Right.
I don't know. It's hard to remember. But
you don't have to remember. It's fine. I was just curious.
But like, they sent us. There was this awkward, like pop rock stuff. Mostly.
A lot of what was circulating at the time, though, at that time was like that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like radio rock that doesn't. I don't even think people really remember, even fondly, or remember at all today. Like.
Everyone remembers one of those songs, but that kind of crosses with pop rock, like the Stacy's Mom or whatever.
Oh, Fountains of Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
like bands like that.
Yeah. That was really popular then. Or like I think of it like it was like the Sum 41 era when like everything was very poppy.
They would send at school. They would send us these because I went to school near Nashville, so like everybody knew somebody in the music industry. But they would send us these squares called compact discs, and we would listen to them in class
crazy.
together.
I've never seen or heard of one of those in my life. I did not have a binder.
I know
of
music these days
comes
that you listen to comes exclusively on cassette tape.
Yeah.
But we used to listen to them on these little plastic discs that are kind of like ashtrays but without the folds.
Like you put your cup on it?
You put a lot of things on it.
Or could you was one side reflective so you could snort cocaine off of it?
Yeah.
I don't even understand what you're telling me right now. I did not have a binder full of
those things, like PlayStation games are like that. Oh. But they weren't black on the back.
You listen to music off of PlayStation games?
Something like actually you're not supposed to. I used to import when I was a kid. I would on the PlayStation era. I would import games from this import store we had.
Yeah.
Called Game Trader.
Yeah.
And I got
I heard of Game Trader.
The Dragon Ball GT, Ultimate Battle 22.
Yeah.
And DBZ Legends. And they're all really bad games.
Yeah.
But I was so into Dragon Ball Z as a kid, so into Dragon Ball Z, I have no idea. I figured out how to import games when I was in elementary school on my PS1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm and you did and nowadays you don't have to import games. You can a lot of them are region free.
And that actually that was a huge issue. Region locking was a huge issue in the aughts as well.
On a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
I again imported Dragon Ball Z game. And I had to get I get a box cutter and cut off the nubs in my American Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
The nubs that physically prevented a Japanese or a Super Famicom cartridge from going in.
Right.
And that was fun.
You had to so that's a literal hack. You literally hacked up your Super Nintendo so that you could get the Japanese.
Well, the NES, all you had to do was find a copy of Xanadu, and you were golden.
Yes. Right.
Fat Xanadu. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. Because they had the converter pins, because they rushed the game or something.
They forgot to leave those out, so you could. Also of note that nobody told you how to Google this shit. There was no you know what I mean? In
Well, I also remember I said I was on all these Dragon Ball Z forums and
had to be
all
forum.
day.
Yeah.
Looking up this stuff, so I would here's how you play it on your, and they would just be text.
Yeah.
No images, just someone explaining you how to do it.
Right.
In ASCII form.
This is a lot of this. It's all of this ties back to what I was thinking about, which is I feel like there is sort of not just the aesthetic nostalgia for the aughts, but it feels like there's sort of an ideological nostalgia or desire to be to that, tying back to that era, because I know the first thing I talked about, you weren't familiar with it, but was because one of the girls who was on the podcast I was on, Cuteness Unit, Maisie, she was involved in dealing with the NFT collection people that I was talking about, and the Milady NFT collection.
That wasn't on air.
No, that wasn't on air, but one that also was very unstructured conversation, and you were getting super high while we were talking about it. So
that was from before we recorded.
Yeah, this was a previous conversation we were having off of the podcast. But Maisie was dealing with the kind of calling out these guys because of the NFT creator. Because you know how NFT collections, they'll have an ideology kind of, or they'll try to have one. And the NFT, the ideology or so whatever about this NFT collection is that they're bringing, quote unquote, and I'm not directly quoting this because I don't remember, but they're bringing something like 4chan, trolling aesthetics or trolling tactics, 4chan era topics, and J Street fashion into a new weird dynamic of engaging with others socially. So I just wanted to focus on the fact that this new this group that's saying they're a new thing, that are selling these NFTs and this community and all this stuff and all the bullshit that surrounded it, they're referencing back to something that we had firsthand experience with, which is the era when 4chan, the aughts were when 4chan specifically became something, right?
I'm also familiar with the Japanese street fashion.
You are as well, right.
Like the people who are big into fruits and EGL, the elegant Gothic Lolita stuff.
Yes,
that fashion, right? Like the doll, stuff, right.
And they're trying to sell these NFTs as being representative or derived from, or it's some kind of like weird 4D chess fucking capitalist bullshit, like Web 3.0 bullshit. But it has drawn a lot of people in, and it's drawn a lot of people in were not alive in that era.
And they're falling for the stuff we've already learned from.
Right, and that's why I wanted to reference back to that, because, and it was important to start with the late 90s and early aughts internet, because one of the things that made 4chan massively different from the rest of the internet at that time was, for one, you didn't need a membership to go on 4chan. There was no cooling down period to going on 4chan, because it wasn't like a forum. Before 4chan, everything was forum-based or chat room-based or IRC-based, and in those communities, you had a name, and people had to get to know you. This is also true on, I think, SoulSeek as well, because you're a user who is known for their uploads on SoulSeek, right? And SoulSeek's been a long time. I think even on Napster and like Kazaa and early file sharing, you still were identified. Like anonymity was...
You had people's IP addresses, but it didn't mean anything.
But I think people would still know you as an uploader. Like, you would get a reputation as an uploader. Is that correct?
If you were paying attention to the IP addresses...
Right?
Right.
But not necessarily...
See, no, I mean, like, on like, Kazaa and Napster, you're trying to, like... there's nothing to really tell you who this person is.
Right. Well, you'd have to get the file from somewhere, like the torrent file itself.
Right, but there's no, like... You connect to the network, and the network just hooks you up with whoever has the file.
That's true. Like, I should be more
like,
clear.
SoulSeek was one of the first ones. Like, SoulSeek and what was it? DC++.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Japanese version of SoulSeek that was like Mini, something like that.
Yeah.
Winnie. I don't know. One of them.
It sounds familiar.
Well, anyway, because there was chat room, you had to have a username.
Yes.
On SoulSeek.
Right.
You didn't have to have... There was no chat room on Kazaa or anything else. You didn't really have like a name, right?
That's true. I think I'm thinking more of like how people would share torrent files, and then they I guess that wasn't really through. No, actually, I'll roll back a little bit, because Kazaa and Napster weren't really a good example of what I'm talking about, but they're also not really. They weren't really social sites anyway, or social platforms anyway. They were just a way of getting files. But people would be known for sharing like links to stuff through forums. But the point was that the era that they're referencing, like the 4chan era and stuff.
But like, people would recognize me around the internet. I'm my finger in so many pies.
Exactly.
Especially from the Japanese music scene.
Yeah.
Because I was like on Tokyo Nights and like J-Pop Ski.
Right.
I love saying it that way. J-Pop Suki. Mm-hmm. And like Tom Berry and all these places, and people would be like, "Oh, hey, I know you."
Yes.
Or some people just recognize me by my file structure.
Right. Which is like, I don't know if Zoomers know what that is.
Well, I read an article the other day saying most people don't know what a file is.
Right.
Because everything's just on a screen on their phone.
Correct.
But anyone's capable of learning stuff. But I mean, it is strange to me that people wouldn't know that. I don't know if they teach computers in school anymore. I had a typing class.
Maybe
we learned internet etiquette. That's about it.
Maybe they just don't know what a file is, like referencing it as a file. Like they know that like you to open. No, they might not, because a picture could just like they might think of a JPEG as being just Instagram.
Well, I just tell them it's a collection of data points that's stored on your phone. And they interact with each other in certain ways. Yeah. And a collection of data points that represents the thing you're doing on your phone is a file.
Right. Basically, it's the thing that is referenced. It's a file. It's a file. Do people put files in it's a file. It's like when you have a file.
Well, explaining things to people is so weird, because you just make them feel stupid for not knowing. Because you make it sound like everybody should know it, and then they just feel bad about it.
Well, if you can imagine the FBI having a file on you, what would the file look like?
A JPEG.
It would look like a JPEG. I do like the idea of the FBI keeping like old school memes on you as your FBI file, like your motivational poster.
Dude, I'm scared shitless about what's in my FBI file.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about it. The internet in the aughts was when things there was some sort of translation point. This is very funny.
Convection point.
Convection point. There was some sort of is it convection point? I don't.
Convergence. Explain to me what you're trying to describe, and I'll use the fancy word.
Okay, I'm trying to describe instrumentality.
Heaven.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The point where the aughts was like, it wasn't quite there yet, but it was a period where things transitioned out of compartmentalized internet into one
Monoculture.
Monoculture, right. The reason I actually said instrumentality is because the internet, compartmentalized internet, where everything was separate, and you could be a member of a forum, and think of that forum as like your little world. You might be on multiple ones, but it was all very separate stuff. Because communication happened slowly, bit by bit, and
literally sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your baud rate, Daddy?
I mean, I had to fucking kick my mom off the phone just to get online. So there's things move slowly. Socialization moves slowly. There's a cooling down period before someone gets to know you on the internet.
When was the last time you wrote a letter?
I was gonna write one to one of my Twitter mutuals, but then I forgot because I forget everything. She offered, but I forgot to do that. I was gonna send her something. I could still probably do it. I'll message.
You could do anything if you believe in yourself.
That's the kind of message that you used to hear a lot in the aughts as well. It actually was. Do you remember motivational rhetoric in the aughts? Because it really was not the same as now.
Motivational rhetoric. They had those motivational signs.
They did, which became memes.
Demotivational became memes in 2008, 2007.
It was actually pretty late in the aughts.
Yeah, but motivational stuff we thought was cool for a bit, and it took a minute, plus the internet, plus ratio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big L.
Yeah. Yep. Just like in chess.
Just like in chess, you take your big L.
Go down 3 squares and onwards to 2. Right there on the middle of it.
That's how I play chess, by putting all pawns, because I believe in communism and egalitarianism, and you should only have pawns. I will not have a queen on my board. I only have a slowly advancing army of pawns. You can put whatever pieces you want. I will still win.
I just put the bishops on the front line because all you need is faith.
All you need, yeah. And
as our Lord and Savior Fred Durst once said in his first best song, you gotta have faith.
You gotta have faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bishops can convert the other pieces.
I think Fred Durst really set the tone for the 2000s with his album Insignificant Other.
I don't think you're joking. I think Fred Durst is actually a really good example of the time period that I'm talking about.
You do know I can't tell when I'm looking like I'm joking all the time.
Neither can I.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You're also really high, so it's fine.
Don't spoil it for the audience. They're sitting there wondering if I am, because some of them probably want to join in. Speed is so great.
It's probably going to make your listening experience. You'll understand what Alice is talking about, and I'm just going to sound like I'm babbling like an idiot, because I am.
No, you're making a lot of sense, honey. I think you're doing great. Just keep going.
Alice is the mother that I never had, holding a gun to my head, telling me to keep going.
It's loaded.
Keep going. Yeah. I wish my mom had threatened me with a gun more. Probably would have motivated me to make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when did 4chan actually start becoming a thing, you think? Like, when do you... I mean, I can look up when...
When it started becoming a thing?
Yeah, like, I can remember when 4chan... Like, I can look it up on Wikipedia.
I can share some memories of, like, when I first remember hearing about it.
Yes.
Because I remember talking about it with another person in real life.
Right.
It was 2006 or 2005 at my friend Angelo's dorm room.
Yes.
And they were looking at stuff, and I was like, oh, boring. People on my forum are into 4chan too, and I don't have to go there because I see all the memes and hear all the rhetoric from the same people.
Yes.
And I don't have to like go be bogged down with this anonymity and like huge format that I didn't like because it gave me a headache.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more used to it now, but I still don't like post there. I don't really contribute. It doesn't feel natural for me, but I heard about it and didn't like have a problem with them because it was just another forum to me.
That makes sense.
It was like, oh, it's an image board. Here's how it's different. Well, I like forums, but y'all can come over here and we can hang out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because the forum structure is almost like besides certain can you think what are the most popular actual forums like rate your music, Kiwi forums is actually one of the only still like forum structure.
I'm on
places.
A forum. It's a gaming forum called Reset Era. But mostly because it's like a good place to get. It's a good place to get news and a good place to get news. Yeah, news. I guess.
Right. Well, specific.
Well, like and talk about like speculation and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, forums aren't completely dead, but it is like pretty specialized
There's a lot of
now.
industry people there, but most of the industry people don't want to be known because they're just like grunts or news people or whatever.
I mean, there could be PR issues, right? I think if they.
Well, a lot of them will talk about like, oh, at my job, I never do this with my assets, but they won't tell you that they're working on or what company. It's always kind of the same.
I guess Steam also has its own version of forums, so it's not completely dead.
Steam has discussed like forums for each game.
Yeah,
and there's still people on like GameFAQs and like other stuff, but like gaming forums, like a lot of forums still have like its core users. But they're not growing much.
It's not, because it used to be.
But it used to be when forums were a thing, people from all age groups would join them. Correct. There's people on that first forum I ever joined that are probably like dead now.
Right.
It's been 20 years. You know.
I mean,
one of the people that was on one of those forums did die like 2016. I remember hearing about that.
Like a very notable user.
Yeah, right? Like he gave me his like Netflix password.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And then like a couple months later, no longer around. And I mean, it was weird because like you grew up with these people on the internet.
Sure.
And I was always told when I would get upset about online arguments, I would always get told, "Oh, don't get mad about it. It's just the internet."
Sure.
And so like also during this early 2000s time, I think our perception of how much the internet meant to the world changed. It used to be something we were scared of.
Absolutely.
And then like 9/11 happened, and we're like, we probably need to use this to fight back. And then I think that's when things really kicked in gear.
It does, wasn't it that like the Department of Defense like started pumping money into developing the internet like after 9/11? Like basically the intelligence community was like, all right, we're going to fund this so that. And
maybe if they would have funded ARPANET better, we wouldn't have had 9/11 happen.
Yeah, maybe. But that depends on how much of a conspiratoid you are and believe that it was like done on purpose to scare us all. It was pretty scary.
Well, that is one of the things that people like to say about, you were talking about Web3 and stuff, is that like we went from this like weird sort of word of mouth internet to social media-ized internet to this weird sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we're going to do something different internet. Wink. Give me your money. I don't know. Like,
right. That's
like, I like the idea of having like a wallet with all my assets on it and being able to go to different websites and do things.
Yeah. There's a lot of convenience there.
Whatever is happening there now isn't the same thing as what the burgeoning scene in Web 1.0 was.
Correct.
Because there's so much money wrapped up in it instead of like discussion and like, I don't know. It just seems too hyper-capitalistic to be any sort of, to be compared. Like, it could have been.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's weird how things change.
I think what you're saying is it's a little bit like cart before the horse with Web 3.0. It's like they're already... It's like the storefront is up before... So, Web 1.0 that we experienced was not a very transactional space. Like, there was not a lot of... I mean, as far as I remember at least, but maybe that's because I was a kid and didn't have a lot of money, or I didn't...
Well, the most transactional space you could do was sign someone's guest book for a while.
Right. Like, you couldn't... I think I was...
Or Usenet.
There was, like, a random Wired article I saw that noted that the forms, like, in HTML, the forms...
Mm-hmm.
What's the word for it? Like, I don't know if you know HTML very well. But
I don't remember HTML very well.
Okay. Well, like, the forms... The forms... I can't remember what it's called. Like, the syntax of forms. Had a massive impact on the internet because HTML is still pretty standard. Like, all the stuff that they used in the aughts, I think, HTML, like, they were developing it, and then it went into Java and blah, blah, blah. And I don't really understand it that well. But the forms syntax, or whatever you want to call it, it's basically the thing that allows...
I know what syntax is.
Right.
It's the open bracket word, end bracket, comment, and then you close the brackets with the thing again. Kind of like a BB code or whatever.
Yeah, and the forms thingy, like, that is basically the thing that allows you to, like, make drop-down menus and put money in to buy stuff on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Like, Amazon is like, composed massively out of this one HTML element.
Yeah.
So it feels like so the Web 1.0 was constructed with, like, it wasn't done... It was... The internet was established, and then they started implementing uses for the internet.
Right.
And the direction that, like, new developments in internet structure since, like, crypto started... Like blockchain technology started advancing. It's like the storefront is already up before we even know what the fuck Web 0.3 is. So they're already... It's not that...
Web far less academic, too.
Right. Web 1.0... Ooh. Sounds like I've got cocaine stuck up my nose. But I would rather kill myself first. I said that online.
Put that on the blockchain, folks.
Yeah, Alice is gonna offer me some cocaine, and that's how she's gonna kill me.
I would never offer you cocaine.
Oh, that's why I know that she's the best co-host in the world. She would never give me cocaine, even she had a massive amount, like, big pile of it, and was like...
I would only give you cocaine if I needed a mule or a fall guy.
Oh yeah, I've done that before. It's all good. I could be a fall guy. I'm just not gonna snort it. I'm actually probably the best cocaine.
Yeah, I think giving drugs to someone who has patently denied them is pretty abusive.
Yeah.
But thanks for that.
Probably. Alice is not an abusive person.
At all.
Don't listen to what you've heard on the street or on the internet. No, I mean it. She's great.
The only thing you should listen to on the street is the homeless guy that says the end is near.
Yeah.
And the other one where it says Jesus is weed.
Because both of those guys are legit. The end is near guys were all right. We should have listened to them, but we didn't, because nobody listens to warnings, because warnings are really lame and a big, harsh on your mellow.
That's why I always get hit in the sidewalk.
Get hit on the sidewalk?
Yeah.
For telling people the truth?
No, because people don't watch warnings.
Oh, that's right. Warning, Alice is right here. And they run into you.
No, it says don't take bikes on sidewalk.
Oh, that guy.
Or no, or the little doohickeys.
The doohickeys that they're
the little rented bike, not the rented bikes, but the little...
Oh, the electric scooter things?
Yeah, the scooters.
Like the Lime scooters?
Yeah, those electric scooters, like, people just go wherever they want with them, and you almost hit people.
I want to kick everybody off of them that's riding them.
Walking, I mean.
Yeah, if I see someone riding one, I want to just kick them and watch them fly.
But the internet.
Yeah, the internet, the Web 1.0 structure was, like, it was developing. I know that they talk about, like, the .com boom, but that was not something that, like, the average person thought about. That was, like, a whole investment thing in a bubble that popped.
I was alive and on the internet when the .com bubble boom.
Yeah.
When the burst or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so pets.com is gone, I guess. I didn't use that site. Is my forums up? Cool.
Yeah. Essentially, essentially all these sites that people tried to make money on died because there was no actual like
there's no infrastructure for it.
So it didn't. So I feel like people are saying that like crypto shit now is kind of akin to the .com bubble in that way because crypto has gone through like major financial crashes and stuff. But the point that I was trying to make is that Web 1.0 had utility before it had transactional shit going on. And like Web 2.0, the big characteristic of Web 2.0 was like Amazon.com. Was like basically what we think of what we've been doing on the internet for the past, 10 years is Web 2.0. And that's where things started to really, like, things became very transactional because you could just buy shit on the internet became, like, part of the point.
I just want an internet that doesn't feel stuck to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's like it's like when they keep trying to pass those bills to turn the internet into a utility. Yeah, they can control the speeds and treat your internet like different tiers.
Right.
Those net neutrality acts or whatever.
Right.
Like they're gonna consolidate all the information that they're selling to people into almost their own networks anyway. Right. I want an internet where like I don't have to rely on the same 6 companies to get information. Yeah,
that's really like frightening to me because you can't function without the internet now. You could that's the other thing. Like in Web 1.0, you could easily function without the internet. Everyone did it. It wasn't weird to not use the internet. It was considered kind of weird to be on the internet all the time. It was actually pretty weird.
Yeah.
People thought it was weird.
Got made fun of a lot for it.
Yeah, even by people who were like quote unquote weirdos. Like, because I went to school with people who were like anarchists and punks and like goth kids. That's what, like, all of us were concentrated in one tiny school because we didn't want to go to other schools. Everyone at other schools were assholes. And being on the internet, like more kids who I knew were on the internet a lot, but we were still we were like in the weird anime club. That was literally a class I got credit for.
I started my anime club at my high school.
Right. So like that was like if you're on the internet a lot, that even with like people who were in alt culture, they were not necessarily with it. They didn't think of it as something that was necessarily normal. But I mean, I thought it was normal because I had been using it for so long. And they wouldn't really make fun of you. It's just they would be like, "Oh, that if you read or saw something funny on the internet, they wouldn't get it. They wouldn't necessarily think it was funny or understand what you were talking about, or they would think it was kind of weird." That's what was my experience anyway. Like especially if you like internet humor in the aughts, or it was like really weird. People considered the corny, what's now considered corny memes, like the demotivational posters, that was like really weird to people.
Until Friendster and MySpace came along.
Yeah.
I remember being in high school being told to make a MySpace.
That was one of the...
by my friends in high school.
That was one of the only acceptable uses of the internet that I remember for like people who
were
like
just like... Was it 2003, 4, 5?
Right.
It was early. It was fucking early. I was also on SoulSeek in 2003 too.
Yeah.
So all blends together at this point.
But the like
fucking old, okay.
I guess at that time what you used the internet for was also kind of important to people. Like having a MySpace wouldn't be weird because you were using it to socialize, or like you were using it to show off something.
There was also this transitional period from when you were scared to meet people from the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they could kill you. And I feel like that point in time, which was... What were you just talking about?
Like MySpace era?
Right. MySpace era kind of was when that stopped being a thing.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really good to bring up. Like the era of internet trust. Of like social trust on the internet.
Right. Like I remember the first time I met somebody off the internet, it was an accident. Mm-hmm. They recognized me at a Middle Tennessee anime convention at a room party. They were on the visual keyboards on MySpace. And they recognized me from posting there.
You had posted pictures of yourself, right? So they knew what you looked like, or
well, I had pictures of myself on my MySpace. And I had
it's cool.
But I was posting about Japanese music and Visual K stuff in the Visual K boards on MySpace.
Yeah.
And he recognized me at this anime convention, and out of the blue comes up to me, and it was really creepy. Admittedly, how can it not seem that way? But then he was like really cool, and we partied and it was fun.
I think it was that in that like
I didn't expect it to be.
No, I understand. I think it like if you reference like think of like safety and like how you deal with strangers like when you were growing up, if you were like our age, like the same age. Somebody knowing like where you lived or having your phone number when you were a kid in the 90s was considered really weird.
My dad made me a website in 1996.
Yeah.
When I was 9 years old. My mom was freaked out because she didn't want my real name on it.
Right.
So I was 9.
And
it was the internet.
To her,
and that was the only justification you needed.
Anybody
in 1996.
The thought of anybody being able to like find your name on the internet was really scary. Just because like I guess also at that time there was less traceability.
In our headcanons there was this in our collective headcanon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was this idea of a digital highwayman who was going to come and kill us if we weren't secure enough with our data.
Yeah, which is like way more dangerous now than it was at that time.
There's so much data nobody okay, honestly, there's so much data when people buy this stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody actually combs through it unless you piss them off individually, or most of it's just, hey, we're going to sell this to some big company.
Right.
That's most of what goes on. Mm-hmm. But you can also buy them individually and hope it's not a game artist off of like an I2P or Tor site or something.
Yeah. Well, also digital security has like, I guess there was kind of, was there like a middle period, you think, in between the ease of like hacking and, and doxing someone and getting someone's data and like enough security where like today you can protect your identity to a certain extent.
In the earlier
strangers.
On forums, the most information I ever got was an IP address.
Right.
And people didn't really know how to use proxies as much back then.
Mm-hmm.
I did, though, because I had to learn how to do sock puppets and got banned a lot for being an immature kid. Anyway.
This is how you learn stuff, right?
Like, yeah. Just stop showing compassion and start teaching kids how to hack.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. Teach children how to hack.
But, like, and nowadays, it's like, well, you can do a lot more with someone's IP address, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you could do with it back then, except for, like, figure out who their ISP was, like what town they were in.
You can find their location.
But like, I don't know. I don't know as much about how to dox people as people like to think. Because I've never actually really done it, but
no,
I've tried to protect myself from it, or my dad tried to do it for me or something.
Mm-hmm.
What you had to worry about is if you had a website and you didn't protect your who is information.
Yeah.
That was all I remember about back then. These days, it's like, well, who knows how people get it anymore?
I don't, because the who is information, because you had to register personal information in order to have a website, right?
Right.
At that point.
Now, nowadays, domains can hide it for you.
Yeah, it's all kind of back end.
Yeah.
That it's like that's protected by some company.
Well, like I got my website through HostGator.com. I'm sorry if I keep saying the brands out loud. They're just paying me to say all this.
You should go on HostGator. GatorDating.com.
Gator dating.
GatorDating.com.
Get that gator while the dating's gating. Anyway. Point is
Miami.
Point is, I have the website, but then they'll just put their information on the who is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the who is?
I'm guessing it's something you can reference in order to find out. Like,
so if I open your computer, like type in CMD,
sure.
You can type in who is or ping and type in like my website.com, or like the IP address, and you can get like a list of information of like who's like at that thing.
Sure.
That's about it.
That makes sense. Less protected in like earlier internet. So
I just think people were a lot because I was a child and had to listen to the adults.
Yeah.
I don't think they all knew they were talking about either, because it was such a burgeoning thing.
Yeah.
That everybody had different ideas about it.
Correct.
Like my stepdad was like afraid I was gonna go look at porn.
Right.
And I was like, I'm like, porn is the least interesting thing to me. I just want to be on the internet about video games and Dragon Ball Z. And they were like so scared I was gonna look at porn, but it was really my like other people.
There was,
I don't know. They started putting all this net nanny stuff on there, and I was like so used to like 10 years of being able to get on the college life internet, like all day. What were we talking about that for?
Well, they actually the division between porn and internet use at that time, that's probably its own whole topic, but it was like people thought of it as very segregated. It was fairly segregated, I think, because I think now you can just see porn on Twitter. It's just like everywhere. It's like porn and the internet are like so integrated in like nowadays that it's fairly normalized. Like porn uses and just it being around is normalized. But on the internet then it was like really like that they thought of porn sites as like the dark web where like evil things happened and like you would see evil content and like be corrupted. But that I actually think is a pretty significant difference between then and now. I don't really have a judgment about it. I just remember that being like if you went on porn sites they were going to hack you and like beam like demon rays in your brain.
We had viruses at home with like the pop-up
Yeah, that's right. And like search the extra toolbars and shit that would pop up in your browser. And that was actually it was easier I think to get. I feel like virus and malware shit is like a lot easier to fight now than it used to be. But then again, I don't really.
There's a lot more people looking for it.
Yeah. Or like it's just more user friendly to like to stop and clear. But the thing that I wanted the main things that I wanted to reference that we were getting at was if people now are creating like capital oriented community based Web 3.0 ideology groups and just in general kind of referencing to the aughts and the what do you call the era after the aughts? The 2010s, I guess.
No idea.
Okay. They.
I like to pretend that era doesn't exist.
The 2010s I did want to touch on actually because we have a little bit. We have like I still have like an hour before I need to make a phone call.
That's right.
So. It was. I can't explain why that was so funny, but I'm doing some cocaine right now. Sorry, from my little thing in my pocket.
Just snooze, right?
Basically, the nicotine pouches to keep me from getting aggressive.
Oh, I thought that was your.
They're full of
testosterone
nicotine.
making you aggressive.
They're full of nicotine.
My pronouns are she, her, by the way.
Estradiol and lithium.
My favorite way to pronounce estradiol is like I like saying it estradiol.
Estradiol.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like very elegant.
Yeah, it does.
The what exactly do you think they're like if they're talking about like 4chan era like people why that's actually the question.
You people?
Why do you people
To whom do you refer?
I'm talking about the Zoomers. I'm talking about Zoom. I'm not talking about you.
Okay.
Yeah, you people.
All right.
No, not you people.
The Zoomers.
The Zoomers.
Go on.
What is it about like the aughts and well, okay. This is very unstructured and I'm doing terrible podcasting as usual. Because my brain does not.
There's no wrong way to do a podcast.
That's right.
There are wrong ways to listen, and that's with the volume off.
Yeah.
Which is probably what you're all doing. Anyway.
Yeah, you've already turned the podcast off. I can call you a complete asshole right now. Dumb shit. Should have turned it back
Nobody cares!
What is it about the 2010s? The 2010s is when the internet became what, like, it is now.
I blame Taylor Swift.
She had a lot to do with it.
And Kanye.
Kanye had a lot to do with it.
They started meme culture together.
I actually remember when the meme, the him grabbing the mic meme, that it felt kind of like almost like a monument.
Rickroll started it, but Kanye sealed the deal.
What are the 2010s the meme era? Like, you know what I mean? Because meme...
Well, we let in having...
Right.
No. It was Obama era, and we were like having fun, excess or whatever.
Which is insane, because I still think of that era as being like when I was fucking broke, but...
Well, we were all broke, air quotes, but we felt rich in spirit.
It was! No! But you're right! If you're making a funny right now, it's actually dead serious.
Like, also...
You're also dead serious. We, like, I wanna reference, if anyone tries to tell you that, like...
I don't know what face to make when I'm just spouting rhetoric.
You make the perfect face when you spout rhetoric. If anyone tells you that the Obama era was like an era of excess, I never saw any of it. Of course, I wasn't in the USA at the time, but I never saw the excess that they were talking about.
I worked at a gas station and drove Uber in Nashville.
Yeah.
I lived like a rock star because I just kind of hung out. You know, I was young in my 20s and you could just like get in places.
That's true. Money-wise, I'm just saying, like.
Nobody had money.
Nobody had any money.
We were just kind of vagrant and cool and went around places.
Right. I mean, the excesses of the era, I guess, were more like social.
But was it because I was in college? Is that what college was like for everybody? Because after I graduated, I kept doing that too.
I don't know. I dropped out after.
But it was also Nashville, so it's just music everywhere all the time.
That's really cool. I was in Taiwan for most of it, so I didn't
leave Nashville until like 2016. So
right
up here, it's all internet all the time.
Well, So if the aughts were sort of like this era when the internet's like was socially developing, it feels like it was. Like,
do you remember Reboot?
Networking. Yes, I do. I watched a lot of Reboot. That was a really goofy show, but I really liked watching it. Because they tried to translate all this computer shit into like an entertaining kids show, and it was so full of bullshit. But
there was one episode where a robot tells a joke in binary.
Yeah.
Out loud.
Yeah. And how long does it go on for?
A bit.
Yeah. It was like early Family
Not literally
Guy.
a bit.
No, not literally a bit, but like for a little while. But that sort of strung out. That's almost like I think of like the associate. The 2010s was like the meme Family Guy decade. I think. Like those are the two things. When I think of the 2010s, I think of like meme
Dane Cook
culture. Dane Cook, yes, absolutely. Family and Family Guy.
GameCube.
Oh, that was great. Brokeback Mountain. Wait, wasn't that in the aughts? I don't remember.
No, I mean like
remember that
Natty Lights, GameCube.
Oh yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yes. But if they're like the nostalgia for the aughts era, I feel like it feels like they're almost people are reaching back there because it seems like it was a simpler time. It wasn't
pre-Tumblr. It was a simpler time.
It was Tumblr definitely defined the 2010s because I feel like the 2010s is the era that like right now everybody is. It's like a lot of reactionary attitudes towards like what's happening culturally and everything. The 2010s are like symbolize everything that reactionary attitudes towards like the internet and like culture and politics and everything is like referencing the 2010s. It was like a huge time period of people of like I guess neoliberal excess. Fine, I'll accept that. It was like that. That's like the neoliberal excess years.
Kind of like in the 80s when all of the orange, the orange stock prices of oranges are disarray.
Were they?
Yeah.
They were? What happened?
Like on Wall Street, right? Isn't that what happened?
The oranges?
Yeah. The price of oranges.
The price of oranges was like a big thing in the 80s?
Yeah, and it crashed the stock or something.
Oh my god.
And they were all living in excess until then.
Oh,
Is that a movie or is that real life? I can't remember. It's like some 80s movie.
I remember I ate a lot of oranges as a child because I probably had a vitamin C.
Because you grew up in the 70s, right?
No, I grew up in the 90s.
Okay.
I was born in the 80s.
Because I know there was like a big vitamin C campaign.
Yeah.
That orange juice people did.
Oh, were they trying to bring the stock price back up?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I don't know. I'm not sure if this is a movie or real life. Can we move on?
Yeah. Because I have no idea. All I know is you can still get oranges at the supermarket, even though they said the supply chains are going to fail. But
supply chains don't fail. They're too big to fail. They just get bailed out.
They're too big to fail, and you can always just you can always order on DoorDash. I don't feel like people are nostalgic for the 2010s in that sort of in that way of like we're in a sense, except for maybe like, you know, life was good then. But the aughts seem like when sort of the era that Vaporwave was referencing and sampling, late 90s to the aughts, as being like an era of sort of like it has like a dreamlike quality to people now. I guess maybe the 2010s is a bit too fresh.
It's almost too. Sometimes I feel about a memory, especially when I smoke all this weed.
Yeah.
Indica or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like memories almost become their own liminal spaces because they're devoid of meaning at a certain point because you've forgotten every person there.
Yeah. And the more, I mean, I know in a pop science way, the more often you reference a memory, the more corrupted the memory gets in your own
kind of like our friendship.
Structure. Yeah. So the more I see Alice, the more corrupt we both become. Yeah. So that's why we keep talking about like drug dealing.
It's like that one episode of Digimon. Anyway.
Oh yeah. No, Digimon is also a very aughts thing too. That was pretty cool. I thought it was lame when it first came out because I was like, oh, it's like Pokemon but dumber. But it was pretty cool.
I like Monster Rancher.
Monster Rancher was also pretty cool. They had a cartoon, I think, didn't it?
Yeah.
The Monster Rancher, and didn't it have like? Wasn't one of the monsters like a ball with some arms or something?
I don't fucking remember.
I also don't remember that show at all. But I think it was actually so like the reason I brought up 4chan is because we first, like, as users of the internet, I first started hearing about it at the same time you did. And then when I actually went on it, it did seem like when I went on it, it did seem like it was there was something kind of new and weird happening there because it wasn't like forums, and it wasn't like a chat room. It was just a place where you didn't have to sign up for anything. You just went on and basically just spewed a bunch of bullshit. But it did feel like when you went on there, it was complex because nobody knew. Like when I first went on to like 4chan and was looking at what was going on there, there was a reputation already that it was a place where really bad things happen and bad people go, and like. If you go there, they would self-perpetuate this idea that if you went there, your mind would be corrupted and you would become a bad person.
I had heard that 4chan was where all the edgelords were.
Yes.
Not like, and I was like, I don't want to be known for like, I don't identify with 4chan. I'm like because like people kept thinking I went there. And I was like, no, what the fuck is that? I've never been.
Yeah.
And then I found out what it was, and from people on my forum. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I already talk like that and talk about this stuff. I don't need to go there.
Yeah, there was like, I mean, people would derisively, like, there would be derision over.
It felt like a mind virus and not a woke one.
No, it was the other way around because if you went on there, people were like just being racist like crazy. It was like the basis of a lot of meme culture was like racist memes. Was the foundation of actually, because I was talking with somebody on Twitter who was. Because this was also being referenced on Twitter, some conversations I was having where a lot of the meme formats and the ideas and actually the way we phrase memes on the internet now, and even like, I'll touch on that in a second, but the way that all of it is structured and the language we use is based off of people on 4chan sort of coming up with these stock racist sort of like phrasings and things. A lot of it is based on that. And people don't necessarily. A lot of people on the internet who like would not, you know, who get really upset about like racist stuff, don't realize that they're using, like, a lot of their thought on the internet is based off of, like, the way that 4chan disseminated, the way people use language now on the internet, is all based in like people being racist and awful and that was happening quite a bit. So I understand why 4chan had that reputation at the time, but it was like, it wasn't. If people are going to like reference back to 4chan as being like some sort of like cultural like moment that you can use to create a like that sort of like
it was the first
thing.
internet safe space,
and after a fashion, actually, like you're not joking. It was considered to be like quote unquote a safe space to be a demon.
Yeah.
Because that's actually something I wanted to ask, because you might have had experience with this. Like during that era, since you weren't on 4chan, and you were on other platforms, was there a lot of like accountability? Like, you know, in the 2010s, one of the big things that happened was like the way people talked on the internet, like accountability for your behavior online became a huge issue in the 2010s. Do you remember, like, in forums, like, how they would regulate user behavior and, like, being racist and being weird and being, like, a bad person?
Because the internet was smaller and the whole being a bad person thing was, like, not an issue because you were on that platform to discuss certain points. Uh-huh. It wasn't like your personal life got revealed and everyone on the forum would know it.
Right.
Everyone would know you from the points you were making.
Right. You were there for a purpose.
Right.
That's what you're saying. Like, there was a function.
It was either you're discussing the topics and being respectful of the rules of discussion, or you were spamming or flaming or trolling.
Which was, like,
so
really
it wasn't, the rules weren't based around, like, political parties or people being bad people. It was like, you can discuss your stuff, but you have to be prepared to trash each other in ways that follow the rules.
Yes. Or, like, critique at the time was, like, if you're...
These were forums. Like, we were there to, like...
To talk about topics.
Yeah.
And, like, I think I guess what I remember is the definition of, like, bad etiquette or being a bad person on forums was, like, being dumb. Like, not knowing what you were talking about, spreading misinformation was... Because, like, you're damaging the platform if you're going around saying dumb shit.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that gets me in trouble on the internet today is that I'm really used to, like, being confronted about my facts.
Yeah.
Having done journalism and stuff.
Right.
And, like, having to pull up a source.
Right.
And so when I go to someone, and I'm so used to that, I take it for granted that other people care about where they get their information from.
Right.
So, like, I'll just, like, not even thinking about it and tell someone, hey, this is factually inaccurate. And then they'll think I'm, like... So I told somebody...
Sure.
So there's 2 different Seattle Pride festivals or something.
Right.
There was one, like, last year or the year before that was supposed to be, like... run by a racist person, and then one that, like, wasn't. And I went on there to be like, hey, no, this report about the owner is actually this event, and he's called me a racist for saying they weren't. I don't know, it got confusing. People don't, but the point is, nobody cares about sourcing anymore. Right. And they also make it harder to even get the news.
Yeah. I know, I understand what you're saying. No, you made perfect sense, because the slower pace of communication in, like, the forum environment and like the aughts meant that people had time to actually look up what the fuck you're talking about and then formulate a response. You still have, I mean, you have a shorter sort of frame of time in which to be correct or wrong on current social media. Because everybody can see when you're wrong and then, like, jump in on you.
There was a point in time where being wrong on the internet wasn't a death sentence. It was a growing learning opportunity.
This is actually what I was trying to say.
And it feels like we're ascribing ontological evilness to people.
Yeah, totally.
Who might not necessarily... I don't know, maybe this is why we have other courts than just court of opinion.
Sure.
For things.
Probably, yes. Court of opinion is, like, notoriously dangerous.
And I feel like, you know, these people who want a revolution don't necessarily even consider that we do have, I don't know.
That the court of public opinion...
Well, it's weird how... It doesn't even matter about the court of law anymore. A lot of times it's affected by these news stories being so big. Like the Anna Sorokin lady.
Sure.
Like her, and the other lady, the Theranos lady.
Yeah.
Their like docuseries came out like weeks before their trials.
Right.
Like everybody would have had to have heard of seen about it, and like from a marketing standpoint, that's gonna seep through to the court case itself.
There's no way to avoid to like create a sterile court environment.
And it's almost like there's no way because there's corporate hands around the throat of the internet in general.
Yeah.
You start seeing like this less and less distinction between like online and real life because we're all being fed the same information.
Yeah, the two world because like the internet is the first like if you want to talk about like material, like something material and tangible that has like, you know, like feedback into real world consequences and not, it's the first the first dimension, like alternate dimension, if I want to get like high concept that human beings have actually had to deal with, because it is a second world. It's just it's like information and right. If we're gonna want to get like Baudrillard in here, because Alice did just show me her Simulacra and Simulation book. I do like Baudrillard a lot. I have read some Baudrillard. One of the only philosophers I've really read like anything by besides Camus. But it is the first like alternate, the first like second example of like another dimension where things have their own rules, and then you can interface with it and then create real world consequences through in another space that you can't actually physically like enter yet.
So what you're saying is when the youth create a simulacrum of the 90s and early aughts, when we see it, that's not real for us, but it's real for them.
Yeah.
And that disturbs us. It's like an uncanny valley of time.
Yeah, it does. That is a really good observation. That's a good way to put it, because I know you're giggling because that's a stone thought that popped out of your brain, but I thought it was pretty accurate. That like Zoomer nostalgia for the aughts is it's not going to be accurate because nostalgia is never accurate, but it is like a sort of like a real doll of something that it's like seeing a real
really
doll.
Hot and too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Of a person that you used to know or something, or like a wax doll of a celebrity or something like that.
It's like when people think that Gautier song, someone I used to know, they in their memories they think it was a good song. Yeah. And they listen to it again and realize that it is not.
It's actually a hot piece of crap song.
Yes.
It's terrible, and that's why I'm glad he never took off. Because the song's fucking trash.
He makes music worse than I do.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, and I have made better pop songs than got to. What the fuck name
Gautier.
Gautier. I hate his name too. Everything about him is just repulsive.
Yeah, names are awful. I wish we all had barcodes.
Yeah. I wish if my social security number was a hash, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, then someone could just get enough computing power to like crack your hash.
Crack my hash, and then
you'd be like you'd be like on your phone checking your wallet and be like, oh, my hash got cracked.
My hash got cracked. Now you can deal with all of my debt. You can pay all my debt off. Good luck, loser. I have no money. I'm worth negative. I'm a conduit for global collapse. That's how I feel. I'm a big black hole in society.
Well, everyone has their purpose.
Yeah, everyone has their purpose, and mine is to steal money from that doesn't exist.
Yet.
Right.
You can just say, I'm pegging this to $1.
That's right. I'm gonna peg this to $1. I'm gonna peg my bank account to $1. I'm gonna turn like negative money into money because I said so. But I'm trying to get my brain back on track. The era, like when 4chan first started, if people want to reference that time period, it had a accurate reputation. It had, with this you can do editing. It had an accurate reputation as a bad place, because it always was a bad place. It wasn't the reputation that that people there wanted to cultivate is that it was a dangerous place with power, because every time anything happened in the real world that 4chan was responsible for, they would all basically cream their pants and be like, we are the masters of
the first time anyone cared was not necessarily about 4chan, but it was Anonymous, who were users of 4chan. That's what the news rhetoric was going with. Right. And that's how everyone found out about 4chan, from Anonymous doing stuff against Scientology.
This was also, okay, I want to note that at this point in time, when I was actually on the internet and looking at this, the idea of Anonymous as a group was incredibly fucking stupid, because it was literally just your name on 4chan. It's literally just what shows up as a post on 4chan. Anonymous never existed.
There were some articles I had heard of that said Anonymous existed back on Usenet and then moved to 4chan, but because, it doesn't matter.
It's just all the same. It's just people copying a name. And actually, I feel like that's a good example of kind of foreshadowing. Like the Anonymous as being reported on as a hate hacker group was foreshadowing for the present day of
they weren't as a hate hacker group. They were we're interested in holding people accountable. That was the word of mouth vibe back then in response to the Scientology thing, because everyone knew Scientology was fucked.
Yeah, and you could tell at the time that the media had no idea what they were talking about when they were trying to define these things. They couldn't really wrap their head even around what the objects, the actors, the methods, and all of that was very confusing to people, to journalists at the time. They didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, because even on 4chan, and this is also it was this time I was also reading, and even on some of the IRC chats for Encyclopedia Dramatica.
My roommate was on there once.
Yeah, I used to use it because it was one of the first places. This is also, I think, when Kiwi Farm. Well, it was the Quickie back then, but it was I don't necessarily mean to reference the horrible drama that is Chris Chan's life, but the drama of Christine Weston Chandler, I really feel is a model for the development of the internet. It went on for the span of time that we think of the internet as developing, and the developments that took place in her life mirror the drama of pretty much everybody on the internet over time. I feel it was a really significant, the entire story, documentation of her life, and the manipulation that went on, and the damage it did to her, and the consequences of it are the moral fable of the internet.
But do you think she deserved it for being annoying?
No. Because when you were annoying on the internet, the most that would happen is someone would call you dumb, being annoying on the internet is not a crime. Everyone does it. What do you,
do you do it?
All the time. It's my brand, but being posting annoying shit. And posting annoying sounds,
I agree. I think you do.
Yeah. Basically, being a noise artist is essentially being an annoying piece of shit and saying you should listen to this and maybe pay me for it.
I love when noise artists gets mad about my volume levels. It's I'm doing that on purpose to piss you off.
That it boggles my mind that a noise artist could get annoyed about someone else's work. Ever.
Well, they'll use buzzwords oh, I don't like home recorded stuff, or because that's kind of the vibe I'm going for.
That is disgusting to me that someone would ever have that opinion.
I think it's normal.
What the
to hate things. Hate is okay. Normalize hatred.
Oh yeah, no. I have a healthy relationship
of poorly produced noise music.
I have a healthy relationship with hatred and in general. I feel I really...
This noise bad, this noise good.
Yeah.
It's I thought the point of noise was to fucking let go of all that shit and just fucking rip.
Yes, right. And that, so, being annoying, do I think she deserved to be, have her life torn apart because she's annoying on the internet and kind of not... I mean, she's not a great person. She's done a lot of bad things, but like,
well, haven't we all?
That's the point. Like, she's a person with mental health issues who is not like, of course, like most people on the internet aren't good people, but like
You say most
people on the internet aren't good people.
Okay.
Well, most people are like horribly flawed and make terrible mistakes all the time. So.
Yeah, she's pretty unhinged, but that doesn't mean she deserves what she deserved or what she got.
No, it was like the entire like saga of Christine's like life is. It feels like it follows every step of the internet from then till now, and like almost society. So, like. And that's because I reference that because when I was on Encyclopedia Dramatica, the Chris Chan page was like one of the core pages. Like people, it was huge hits on there because everyone was reading about her and what was happening, like basically following every step of the way. So when I was on ED and I was on 4chan at the time, I remember that like and going back to Anonymous. That it was a huge joke that nobody actually understood what was going on the internet.
Right.
When like journalists tried to cover it, they were completely fucking clueless. And so going back to if you want to like have nostalgia or reference that era, you need to understand like people like Zoomers need to understand that time period was like very incoherent. Like a lot of what's being referenced was there isn't really.
We're all embarrassed of when we look back on us growing up.
Yeah,
it was a real growing up period for the internet.
It was.
I remember the hate on the internet,
yes.
on SoulSeek, in my own forums.
Mm-hmm.
I may have participated in a lot of the really, really bad shit
sure.
that people were saying,
right?
Because we could.
Yeah,
we were just so enthused with the fact anything can happen here. We did it all.
Yeah, no, and that's what actually drew me. That's what drew me to using 4chan and Encyclopedia Dramatica was because it was.
Well, they turned being mean into an art form.
They were hubs of like it was like a strange new methodology of communication, which was based around in like obfuscating opaque. Like hatred and mockery.
It decentralized psyops.
It very much accurate because like that is, and that's what like Web 3.0. Like we were talking about how it's the storefront first. It's also like the psyop first before we even know what the fuck.
I found myself falling into some of it too because like sometimes I'm sitting here all day. Mm-hmm. Dissociating, thinking like, oh god, all these people like really hate this thing I'm into, like whether it's Spotify or Pornhub or like making myself an NFT or whatever. And I'm like, how do I defend this thing I'm into on the internet? And every time I try, I just get more emotional about it than I should because I am expecting all this hate coming back at me. I often get it. I just think to myself, I miss forums.
Yeah.
Where I was allowed to like list out some points and not feel like I was about to get it's hate like very aggressive stuff back. Like it was
because there are like immediate consequences now. Like if you're posting about like this is relevant because you are involved with a lot of or you're interested in a lot of the structure of Web 3.0. You yourself,
right?
You have been interested for a long time, and actually you were telling
growing
me,
up with
right.
Yeah.
You were telling me before we started recording about how it was actually in the late aughts that you started seeing the technology that's being used now for Web 3.0 in development, right?
Right.
Like in the late aughts, what were they working on that is actually foundational for Web 3.0 now? What kind of things? Was it like blockchain stuff?
It was when I was running like the actual like Bitcoin and Litecoin wallets on my hard drives back then, they were small enough to do it. And back then it was just like, okay, well, there weren't a lot of APIs built around it.
Sure.
So we could just go on certain websites that required a certain anonymous email.
Sure.
You had to go on the Silk Road for stuff.
Right.
I went to the Silk Road. I didn't buy anything because I couldn't figure out how to... I didn't understand it as well as I do now.
Was it... I mean, I never went on it. Was it very user-friendly?
Well, you had to have An email from this anonymized email thing.
Sure.
And you had to have like money in your Bitcoin account, but like I didn't know how to get money into a Bitcoin account because we just mined stuff.
Right.
So like I was also telling you before we went on air that I had a computer, but it wasn't fast enough to get money's worth of Bitcoin. But it had enough for me to just mess around with it.
Sure.
So starting back in like the late 2000s, or late aughts, all I ever cared about was just messing around with it. I made $75 off Dogecoin just from leaving my laptop on overnight.
Right.
Like, okay, cool. But like I'm not an investor.
Right.
I was just some college nerd who liked computers a lot and just wanted like, ooh, fancy whatever new stupid thing someone bought a pizza with it? Fancy. Who cares?
I mean, it seemed novelty. In terms of
well,
like
the
its
banks had just collapsed. So like literally the thing in my head was like, oh cool, there's an alternative for when someone else fucks up the banks again.
Right. That was what people thought it was. And I feel like that attitude still exists, even though it's way beyond that at this point. Like, it's in its own stock
The rich
exchange.
people get it. Right. That's what's happening.
Right.
And also, because they get it, they want to steal the money from everyone else to keep their bottom line.
Yeah. They got involved.
Yeah.
Was that in the 2010s that they got involved? You think?
Yeah, in the last 5 years.
So it actually pretty recently.
Because there was always like kind of like small level like VC stuff, but like once it started getting like really like attention when Bitcoin went up to like 10K, started going way up. That's kind of when everyone started really paying attention.
Yes.
Like 2013, 2012, it was in the news big time.
Right.
So
in that early era,
there was no NFTs. There was no like, it was a coin.
Right.
It wasn't really until like Ethereum and some other ones that came around that actual like decentralized applications and like coding could be done with. Ethereum's a virtual machine. Right.
You're investing in a
platform,
a communication structure.
Right. Like beforehand, all this other stuff was like, how do we get this idea? How do we get just the blockchain being decentralized? That was their focus of being a token, just one.
Right.
And there was tons of them with all these like fake initial coin offerings, which are kind of like digital IPOs.
Sure.
A whole bunch of scamming.
Yes.
No one really knew where the money was coming from.
Right.
You could tell by the visual design cues that it was all a scam.
Right.
Which is one good thing to learn.
Yeah.
In college when you're there.
But online scams is something that was also like in the aughts and in the 2010s was something that like became more publicized, I guess, because that was always happening. I think on the internet was people would like finding ways to take the money and run. Once transactionality started being a thing on the internet, being able to recognize scams was something that you kind of got an intuition for when you grew up with the internet, is seeing when something was fake.
Spam emails were around,
Yeah.
I think I had my first email message in like 1995.
Right.
Sent it to my mom at work, or they had like Santa, and it was like, our teacher did something where we're all emailed Santa our Christmas wish. It was like 96. I was like 10. I don't know.
Right.
But we had email spam lists.
Yes.
You sign up for a website, and they just leaked it back then. No one cared. You didn't have to hack anything. They just sold it.
It was easier to scam people because for quite a while, typically you got an email if somebody you knew sent it to you, or like there was an era of legitimacy to emails for a while.
People would click on emails a lot more back then, and people like us didn't understand why the fuck people would be clicking on stuff people didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't understand why people would like fall for that.
Yeah, same.
I've been on the internet. I know how people talk on the internet. This doesn't seem real.
Exactly. You could tell when something seemed like a simulation. You could read the simulation.
And that's kind of why I've always dipped my toes in this kind of controversial stuff, because it's like I've always kind of been able to tell because I've been taught how. A lot of people don't know what to look for.
So to speak, like street smarts for the internet, so to speak.
Like, we're not all immune to propaganda.
Right.
Like, I go down these holes sometimes just to learn how it works and maybe use it for my music or something, just to try it, check it out. But crypto and like the internet at this point has been my entire life, like kind of focusing like how can we use. I don't have a lot of friends, so I have a computer, so I try to make it as useful for me as fucking possible.
Of course.
And it's all I know.
Yeah, right. No, that makes sense. I mean, I both of us have been using computers since like we have like vague early memories, I think.
Right.
Even though they were pretty primitive when we first started.
But it doesn't. It feels like in the aughts, we stopped defining ourselves by what was happening in the real life. Started defining ourselves by what happened on the internet.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we lost a part of ourselves then?
It kind of. I feel like that was where people started to. Well, I feel like the discourse or whatever you want to talk about it around identity was exploded in the 2010s because the 2010s was the era when your identity started to split into, because it was just as the internet was normalized, your identity in the real world and your identity online became standard. You had two different you had two different sort of streams that you existed, and now it's two, but they're so closely interwoven that your identity online and your identity in the real world blur much more than they used to. So your identity online used to be like a certain subset, like a certain sets points of data that you would reference. Like if you had your MySpace, then you were you on your MySpace. If you were going to make a fake MySpace or something, you were defined by your fake MySpace.
There used to be a time where if you met somebody on the internet in person, you'd refer to them by their screen name.
Their screen name. Which we still kind of do, but it's not. It's almost like ironic at this point. Like that back then, like the hacker like stereotype of like you're like in the movie Hackers or whatever they call each other by their hacker handles or whatever. Like that was more standard.
This one guy on MySpace that came to Nashville to play a show with me.
Yeah.
X2Gef. I don't think he gave me his real name until much later.
Yeah.
Maybe he did. I don't remember. But right. I do know that he called me from like a blocked number.
Yeah.
That I couldn't like star 69 or whatever. It said blocked number, and I don't know if he was doing that. I don't care why he did it, but it just reminds me of like people on the internet don't, you don't want. It was just different then. Like now we put our numbers on our Instagram and Facebook.
You have to, right?
Yeah. Well, not only do you type them in, some people make them searchable.
Right. Of course, you're gonna get spam calls and shit, but like you can just bring it up. That's your phone number.
Yeah.
But like for example, low tax is low tax because low tax was his name on something awful, and that became his identity. But it was a specific data point that it referenced, not in. And now you might have too many handles for you to really be like. If somebody were to call me Dead Iverson in real life, there would be like an ironic understanding between me and them that that's like I just go by that on the internet, but calling me that by reverse, like first calling me by my real name is not as weird as like calling low tax by his born name would have been weird if you went to an internet convention. It's like that's low tax. That's because that low tax is low tax on the internet on something awful. That's like almost like a proper name for him, or was.
I've been to VIP rooms at a lot of conventions before, working or something. And even up there, like people still call them
by their
like
the handle
name.
By their forum title or whatever, and it feels more like a proper name for them.
Right.
And then the people online now, if you have the only reason why you would use, I guess, like their handle as their name is if they're so famous.
Well, that's the thing. Fandom became a thing in the 2010s.
Correct.
Hardcore. Because of this Big Bang Theory stuff.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good example.
Not that their cons weren't big in the 90s and early 2000s, but like they did kind of. Anime started, getting bigger anyway. But like,
it's much more normal to watch.
So like in a fandom sense, you have your fan identity.
Yeah.
And on the internet back then, like a lot of fandom stuff was happening on the internet, and you would meet up. So it still had like that kind of not dichotomy, but that kind of like bimodal sense about the internet in real life. Now, I mean, I guess there's people who go to conventions, but like we don't meet up. We don't go to meetup.com anymore, do we? I don't know.
I don't
Where do you
think
meet?
so.
Do you just meet people on Twitter, like that happen to live in Seattle? Like, do you go to like?
It's essentially like that's actually a good question. Like communication, like how that works. Like most of the people that I know, since I haven't been in Seattle that long, but like most of the people who I know online, who like I could potentially meet, it's pretty much by accident, just through like having weird conversations with them.
Oh yeah, I guess that's the thing is you do actually have to talk to them.
But you sort of you don't.
They're not really always there for a reason unless they do talk to you.
You sort of stumble into them like you would like overhear someone at a party talking and be like, "Oh, I'm also from Seattle."
What I find difficult outside of the forum experience is like, and now I don't know what I'm here to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I could talk about almost anything. A lot of times.
There's sort of like a meaninglessness or an aimlessness to conversation.
There's a feed now.
Yeah.
It's just like all one guy, giant guest book with commentary.
Like the
until they invented hashtags.
So you would think of it as like the not like the value, because I don't want to put it into like a capitalist sort of framework, but like the significance of a single message has been has changed. Like an individual message has on a forum, an individual post or an individual like pasta on 4chan used to be like sort of like a landmark.
Every post can be its own OP now.
Yeah. And essentially,
or like, every comment.
The actual disparity between these different things has become blurred to the point where it's just sort of chatter, like a general chatter. It's sort of like everything is sort of small talk.
The internet's not for learning anymore, it's for using.
Yeah, and it stopped being about learning a long time ago in terms of like its central focus. Web 1.0 was sort of like you go on the internet to do research, or you would go to.
Well, I mean, even like just like learning about like what's in, like from each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like we're all just here to entertain each other or whatever. It's like we're past this point of like internet being a novelty, so we're just kind of like doing what we used to do in real life on the internet.
It is essentially
the internet has lost its charm.
So everyone's just kind of hanging out,
and no one's pushing for new uses of it.
The people that are clearly,
the disruptive tech boom.
Yeah,
that crashed.
Yes,
or is crashing.
And actually, this is perfect. That you saying that perfectly wraps back to the people who are claiming to want to start the next thing, like Web 3.0. It's like they're trying to artificially construct that again, but they're doing it from that with the storefront in mind. They're doing it to sell something.
They think they are.
They either if they really believe it, if they genuinely believe that they're going to generate some sort of new revolutionary structure for the way
they convince the world that it has some value.
Yes, and it's completely like inflating stock prices. It feels like, or like talking up like a company to increase the share is the way that they're like. It's like they're. If there's a strategy, they're looking to the past in a nostalgic way to try to replicate something that wasn't there. That wasn't.
You can't force.
It wasn't artificial.
Change.
I mean, if it was.
Crises precipitate change.
Basically, yeah, it does. It's true. And like the funding and design of the internet as it progressed through the aughts to the 2010s, it was all speculative.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't engineered, or I don't think anyway. I mean, surely there's people who have studied it and like they have their own theories or conspiracy theories or valid theories.
I feel like back then it was like, what are the programmers going to come up with next?
Yeah, it was.
Now it's like, what are the scammers going to come up with next?
Yeah, or like what scheme is somebody going to come up with for trying to convince people that they have the new idea that's going to change everything? But that's not how the internet actually developed through the aughts and the tens. It was very haphazard.
That's why I keep trying to use Web 3 stuff the way I used Web 1 and Web 2, where it's just I'm using it for myself.
Yeah.
The way I want. I don't. Like, I was like anti-blog when I was in high school. People trying to convince me to get on MySpace. I was like, I don't want to blog.
Same.
But I didn't understand it was bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm like, I don't invest. I just want to use it for whatever. Right. Just like I did with like social media. Everyone was like, why do you have to join all of them? I was like, well, because I need to figure out how it works so I can get my music out to more people.
You need to familiarize yourself with what it can actually do. And actually, it's unfortunate. A lot of the platforms that you had interest in and you started using early, they basically they're now like going at such high speed that like what your plan for what you were going to do with them, you have to contend with all this noise, haha, with all this noise that
my signal is not as loud as it used to be, and there's a lot of noise trying to cover me up.
Well, I'm sure that you may have felt frustrated at times because your research ended up getting kind of hijacked by everybody using these platforms for other shit.
Right, like I can't talk about like these things that are interesting. It's not that I can't. I choose not to because I don't want to deal with the stress.
Yes.
I'll be talking about how to use, like, I want to use these things in this way, and everyone will start calling me NFT bro, even though I don't give a shit about money or whatever. I mean, everyone cares about money a little. Like, I want to not starve, right? But I don't have like big aspirations for being into money. I want to use the internet in fun new ways.
Right.
That's all I've ever done. It's all I know is using the internet in fun new ways.
It's the opposite of like what the Charlotte Fang Milady thing that blew up was, where they're trying to say that they already understand what Web 3.0 is and the direction it's going in and what they're going to do with it and how they're going to like be the engineers of the new internet.
The only thing is, like, the way it exists now, there's not a lot of actual decent uses for it. People have to make them, but the money's not going towards actually making it interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's why when I hear people talking about like how Web 3.0 is going to change everything, like I see no tangible evidence of Web 3.0 yet, of what it actually like. There's the metaverse, but it's corny as shit, and nobody who is doing anything that I'm interested in is actually involved with it in any real way yet. Like, you're doing your own like exploration into what Web 3.0 stuff can do, but it's still like
all the NFTs I've minted are of like NFTs of like existing work I've already done, and if you buy it, you get the copyright license to it.
Sure.
Like you could. The idea is I'm so afraid to go to the post office. I've never like done my own set of tapes or gotten involved in any of that. It's not my wheelhouse. But the internet is, so I'm like, well, maybe if people want to buy the rights to my stuff and like sell a tape, I'll make it so they can do that as long as Ethereum exists.
Yeah,
and then be done with it.
That's one thing that I wanted to check in with you about, because it's something that people probably need to know about, especially if they're feeling like I'll put up front, I completely understand everybody's hesitation towards like blockchain shit and Web 3.0 shit, not just because of the like climate concerns, but because like it seems shifty the way that it's everything that's happening. A lot of stuff that's happening with it is legitimately shifty and feels like it's trying to take your money. So I understand being hesitant to like even approach it, but.
That's why on a lot of my social medias, I don't talk about it. I don't try to advertise it or promote it.
Yeah.
Except for the fact I wanted the hexagon.
Yeah.
Flag.
Yeah.
Or icon on Twitter. I just wanted it. Okay.
Right.
It cost me like $16 to mint my own Web3 wallet ID now.
People used to pay way more than $16 for custom forum tags
or ringtones.
Like, it's basically the same thing. Right, yeah. It's just like it's a cosmetic thing on the internet. Like everyone understands wanting to buy a cosmetic thing to put online. Yeah, that's literally all it is.
So a lot of times I just try to ignore the noise because it's like, no pun intended again, but like I want to do my own stuff with it. Where the NFT page will have a link to the IPFS address of the album and a magnet link for the BitTorrent of the album.
Right.
And like on my own website, I have a downloads page.
Yeah.
So all these things are basically just like, hey, if you want to get the rights to it, here's the NFT. Otherwise, here's links to my album, and the description will be in the metadata. And it just kind of serves as a point to where when this website goes down or this website goes down, oh, the transaction will still be there. That's all I really cared about. But I'm not trying to get other people to join me in doing it.
This is exactly why I
unless they actually want to buy like the rights to my shit. Otherwise, it's just the Web3 people that see my website see my page might listen to my music. I don't know.
Because this is like on the level that we are functioning, which is where we run a little net label and we have noise music and stuff. Like for the people who are like who we generally associate with a lot of people who are like really who mock NFTs and Web 3.0 shit rightfully, I think, because a lot of it's ridiculous.
It's really stupid.
There is a lot of.
Most of it.
I wanted to ask you about what you actually feel like is like what potential there actually is for like nobodies who just make random weird like art and shit on the internet to utilize these things, because there is stuff that you've been like looking up like that. Like that's basically an organizational tool. You're trying to help people with with the NFT of your album, or like having your album on the blockchain.
Like, I just try to make use cases. Like, because I know I don't give a shit about that scammy stuff. Mm-hmm. But if you try to argue that, like, it's inherently scammy, I'm like, well, does this look like a scam? Like, instead of just making like a what's those rhetorical argument fallacies, I could easily make about how I could use it for this, but I just try to have an example. Here's what I am using it for.
It's not any more scammy than having like a store on your website for your merch or something. It's just a different structure for.
I'm using it as a payment method,
right?
And actually like using it for actual blockchain purposes, like and marketing. When it is taking my money, my marketing budget,
right? There's it. I mean, I guess the only other concern is like people say that like that blockchain shit is like destroying the internet because of like coin mining. But I think the whole point of moving from like proof of stake is that it's faster and also doesn't impact the environment as much. And that seems like if that's the direction that they're going in, that it's actually going to be less damaging than just servers running.
The issue with the proof of stake stuff is that you have to buy in to have proof of stake coins. There's no more buying a hard drive. Okay, so there's two different kinds of like, not two different kinds. There's proof of a bunch of different stuff. Proof of work, where you're running either an ASIC for Bitcoin or like a GPU for Ravencoin and Ethereum.
Right. That's like the Sudokus they talk about solving in order for the.
Right. So, all the transaction data is out of order. My GPU's using CUDA cores to fucking like figure out what's real. But the point is like the total amount of energy that stuff takes versus how much energy. Like, do you know how power grids work?
Barely.
So the typical news story is that like, so people will just be like, but the environment, and then not explain how the electric use actually impacts the environment.
Right. How
much wattage compared to like other networks that use the same sort of thing.
Sure.
It's just very isolated, out of context data that I don't understand as much as I'd like.
Sure.
But I have seen a lot of articles and videos explaining how we should like legalize, like there are useful use cases for proof of work.
Yeah.
For keeping things secure. Like you can't just like stopping people from buying too much of it and owning the whole thing. Like if there's a buy-in, means your proof of work is having like real world money, and people can control that way more than they can how much silicon we have.
Sure.
I think maybe.
Okay.
But they're talking about like I watched an interview with frickin' Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk yesterday.
Okay.
And they're talking about how they want to switch more to nuclear fission because our power grids and all our power stuff sucks ass.
Yes.
Like, we're not drawing in enough power. We're not using enough power in a lot of these places. So to keep things stable, you have brownouts and stuff like that when you're not having a stable power grid.
Yep.
So when you have things like Bitcoin and things like that, you're keeping the power grids more stable, is what they like to tell you.
Right.
But it really just...
It's probably the way the infrastructure is actually organized means that there's probably, because the infrastructure in the USA is in absolute like fucking shit. So there's probably too much power being generated in places where it's not actually being used, and there's not enough being generated in places where people need it. It's just all like disorganized.
Yeah, because I know that we're not using enough power compared to how much we have, and it causes problems that we're not using enough power.
Right, which is like probably crazy for people to hear because they think the problem is, the Earth is running out of resources.
They'll hear Bitcoin uses as much as this city, and they stop there.
Right.
And then I try to explain to them it's very like, I try to do the finger wag thing.
Right.
Here's how it actually works. Nobody wants to listen to that.
Right.
Or I can't get through it because it's like one bit at a time in a chat room.
Yeah.
Where I feel on the offense.
Yeah. Well, because you get mobbed. And
defense.
You can't like defend against a whole bunch of people getting mad at you and then like they block you or mute you instantly, which you couldn't do on a forum before. You had to actually like get kicked off the forum.
Yeah, they used not to have blocking on forums as much.
Yeah. Because the idea, I mean, in Web 1.0 and like in the aughts and the 2010s to an extent, if you didn't like what you were reading on the internet, you used your eyeballs to scroll to go away from the thing you didn't like to look at.
Yeah.
Instead of like, and I understand why blocking and muting exists now. It's because apps and algorithms will force stuff onto you that you didn't want to see all the time, or just because you're trying to curate your internet experience, and that's fine. But it's still a useful skill to just look away from something you disagree with.
Yeah, now I got like sandbox virtual machine Firefox instances just to like not have stuff show up in my algorithm or whatever.
Right. So that junk is having a psychological impact on people, but like at the same time, you know, if you disagree with what somebody's saying, you can slow down for just a fucking second. I think the idea here is that the looking back on the aughts and the tens in terms of like trying to mine it for some sort of, for not just nostalgic purposes, but also sort of a sense of legitimacy, like internet legitimacy. I kind of understand, because the current state of the internet is, as you were saying, since it's kind of all chatter, it kind of feels like a state of disarray. And I feel like people are looking...
There's no more scene queens.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like basically everybody, like it's e-girls on social media or whatever. And so yeah, you're right. Scene queens have fallen way to just kind of being a person that people like. Like it's not, there's not as much of a, I mean, when you say scene queen, you're talking about like...
It's all demagogues now.
Yeah.
There's no more just like, I'm cool. I mean, there is, at least in my circles. I know on Instagram there's like influencer culture.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what modern TV has taught me. Like.
Yep.
But
no, that's true. And
that's different.
That it's not quite the same as, because I feel like being that's a good reference point, like being a scene queen, because that was on MySpace primarily, right?
Yeah.
There was a sort of the MySpace was a way to promote the fact that you were like in real life.
I love that you called it the MySpace.
Yeah.
Because was it ever called that, or was that just the Facebook?
It was just MySpace. But like the MySpace itself, the MySpace page was like sort of a conduit for sharing the fact that you were a cool person that did real life stuff. And now it's like you're a cool person who does internet stuff.
Yeah.
There's a flipped sort of inversion to it. And I understand that for people, I feel like people are pretty tired online because of the constant chatter.
All the real life stuff just goes to support the online.
Yeah.
It's almost like the real world is the simulacrum and the internet is the real world now.
Right. And that's why, actually, that phenomenon I think has been pretty well observed at this point, that people are saying that like the internet is, well, I don't like necessarily phrasing it as the internet is more real than the real world, because they're intertwined universes.
It's a bimodal universe. It's not like real and hyper real. It's just...
Right. It's more that like the real world expenditure of energy, thought, effort, and all of that ends up going into when it's in reverse and it's maintaining an online presence. It's like the other world, or the simulacrum is starting to like. It's starting to pull in resources, like real world resources. That's kind of like what we're saying. It's like the internet is now sucking resources into itself, like human resources, like human like effort and work and labor, to maintain, to like strengthen itself.
And would you say the internet is pegged to the dollar?
The internet's definitely getting pegged. There's a lot of pegging going on the internet. But I think the sense of exhaustion is like kind of people are trying to like some people are trying to pitch the idea that Web 3.0 is going to be like some sort of release from sort of a really tiresome, like exhausting internet environment. But nobody has actually provided any real evidence, I think, to that effect. Like, no, I can't see any tangible evidence that like Web 3.0 stuff that people are trying to push now has any relief from like basically the specter of the 2010s.
Did you ever think that BitTorrent would be used for anything besides piracy? Because Linux distros are like exclusively like released on torrents.
Because of my familiarity,
and we never thought that it would be used for anything besides piracy. And so like people would just block torrent programs.
Yeah.
Or like ISP. And they're like, well, what if you want to use Linux? Like,
because I remember when torrents first came out, they like for a little bit they were. Are you okay? Oh, okay.
I'm more than okay.
You're fine. There was a very brief period where it was like, torrenting is like a more useful way to share legitimate files that you had. It's just like here's this thing that you can where I can like basically share my whatever folder. It was like sort of early networking. Then it immediately went to piracy because people were sharing like copyrighted shit they had.
That's why I like IPFS, because I can right-click, copy the CID, give you that, and then you plug it into yours, and all of a sudden you're transferring it just from all this hash.
Right. I think that, the only reason it became focused around piracy is because all of the shit that people had was owned at that time. So basically, yeah, it's just a method of sharing. We were just all sharing shit that we weren't supposed to according to copyright law. So I kind of already understood it as not implicitly about piracy, but that its utility was getting shit I didn't have to pay for, which was great. And that's why I still love torrenting.
Well, it's ethically dubious, and I'm certain you'll be paying with your soul.
And probably my autonomy when they send me to prison.
Sorry, I had to say that for the sponsors.
Oh, okay, because you are sponsored by some people who have investment.
Yeah, I'm sponsored by
human soul.
Cut that out.
She's not gonna cut it. But
I never do.
The actual utility of Web 3.0, it sounds like people who are interested in what it actually can do, like either they're funded by really rich people and they're doing shit that I don't understand, or like on the level that we operate, people are already like too hesitant to really touch base with it because it's associated with all this garbage. Like basically like the corruption of the internet that has like at this point the internet is more legitimate but also more corrupt than ever. It used to be that like corruption on the internet was like sort of like a rogue form of like defiance, and now like basically every bit of the internet is corrupt with with information that you can't trust, and it's ubiquitous.
Like, you can't trust how it's presented.
Yeah, so because of the way information.
I'm sitting here reading articles all day, being like, "This is so fucking misleading. It's not even funny."
Right.
And you can't convince anyone that it is because all you have to do is be like, "I just learned how to."
I don't expect people. I don't expect people to trust any Web 3.0 shit because internet. The current state of internet corruption is absolute. So the only real way to use the internet and not be a dipshit is just to be a weirdo, and like it's just to be kind of like a weird guy and seem like you're just kind of chilling, hanging out, and not freaking out all the time.
There's some people that like to describe me as an unhinged, mentally ill troon. And I feel like being that and exploring Web 3.0 gives me an interesting intersection of experience.
Absolutely. Because
those people don't hate crypto.
Right. They're the people who are like involved in it, or at least like, and that's the other thing. That's like.
I also talk to like leftist crypto people, and they're like kind of like, I just use it for these games or whatever.
Right.
Like he does the Axie Infinity stuff or whatever.
Sure. Which is interesting. Like that's actually interesting. Like whatever the fuck. Like crypto gaming is going to be, that could be interesting. But the people who are like pushing that like the whole thing of reason that I brought up the Miladies is because all of those people are like would basically hate you. They're all like transphobic and they're all like awful pieces of shit. And the reason why they have an attraction to early 4chan culture is because it feels like they're trying to sort of revive something they feel was lost.
See, that's what I find funny about a lot of this is that the old internet looked up to me and now they want me dead.
It's completely backwards. Yeah. No,
Which sounds like such an old person thing to say, but like even, I don't know, well, you couldn't be openly trans really back then because you too young to really know what any of that was. You were just having fun with people, like anonymous people on the internet.
Right. And I feel like a lot of trans people probably feel that way too, is that like they...
Like we were saying the F slur.
Yeah. Like they have I feel like a lot of trans people, at least when I see them communicating online, there's just sort of like like maybe unspoken sense of like, this shit was supposed to work for us and it's not. Like it was supposed like a lot of people who are disenfranchised, they find, like other people who are like them on the internet.
I've had my Twitter since 2007, and I still don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, right. It is kind of a useless piece of shit. That's why I love using it so much. It's like I'm constantly on there because it's just complete garbage.
Well, I stopped using it for 7 years and forgot that it had been riddled with spam bots.
Yeah, and
or that I followed whoever.
The only reason I originally got one was because I wanted a place to, like, I was like, okay, I make noise. How do I tell people that I make noise? And then I realized that, like, being on Twitter is basically like rolling around in trash, and it's really fun to roll around in trash and, like, jump around in a dumpster and be covered in slime.
I prefer ball pits.
Yeah, and because ball pits are actually worse than jumping in a dumpster. It's more, like, vile and disgusting in there.
It's my favorite thing to do at conventions.
Ironically, Twitter is incredibly not disgusting compared to like what I used to browse on the internet, like 4chan and Encyclopedia Dramatica were just straight up just like horrible places full of horrible.
I had a roommate who was on Encyclopedia Dramatica because he had a sex party at a furry convention, and so like I got to read about him on. Yeah,
because you would see people you knew on there, like that was another thing about Encyclopedia Dramatica that I guess interested me at first was like some of it was like practically. Like, they would be writing about stuff that I had seen, that I can't remember specific examples, but they would, there'd be people you knew on there. If you were on, especially if you were active, like, people who had pages on there. I mean, Christine was people were sharing and getting involved with her life before Encyclopedia Dramatica existed. But that's when it blew up, is because they shared. But, like, people you would know were on there at times. Like, people you knew in the past from being on forums and things, or like just hearing about them would pop up on there.
Well, a lot of my forum members were people from the Japanese music torrent sites and SoulSeek.
Yeah.
So we were all early internet people.
And some of those people
who acted before 4chan was around. Even we acted like those people who were going to start 4chan.
Right.
Like that's how we talked already.
Right, but instead of being anonymous, it was a sort of shared experience between people who knew each other.
Yeah, and I think that's what made me like SoulSeek more than 4chan, or my forum more than that, because it was just all like more tight knit.
Period. Because you could use trip codes on 4chan, but people like would call you shit for using a trip code because it was like against the point. The point was that nobody knew who you were. That's another thing that seems really ironic about like the idea of an NFT collection being based around 4chan is that, and I think that one of the Cutest Unit podcast episodes I listened to, Maisie and oh my god, I think it's Julie, I'm sorry again, if you listen to this, but you probably won't. They were saying that like the point of 4chan is that it was like transaction and identity were null there. Like it wasn't a place where you went to make money, but like reaching back to 4chan to create like an NFT collection where you have some sort of worth or value, but you're still pushing like for that culture in your money making scheme is completely ironic. Because the point, like people on 4chan, when they were using it, if people started to like profit off it, they would like fuck your shit up. They would get mad if you were using they thought of it like as their possession, so there was like kind of still weirdness to it. But like if you were using it to make money, they would like try to hack your shit and take your money.
I think a lot of it is like treating it like the perception of it is it's like a stock, like made up stocks.
Yeah.
When there's actual uses, like because it's a platform,
right?
But they treat it all like it's just investing and like becoming like just decentralized autonomous organizations. Like they all like start those things and they have those little like hocus pocus mission statements like you were talking about. Like, yeah. I mean, there's things you can do with it that aren't scams. It's just you have no idea of telling what is or what isn't. So they'll all say whatever the fuck they want to get you to buy in.
Correct. And
which
so
isn't any different than anything else. It's just a lot scarier because people are spending so much money on it.
Yeah. And you feel like somebody is trying to sell you something every second that you're involved in anything that's Web 3.0 related.
Yeah, there's so much buy-in. Like I joined this one website called Audius, and if you even want your, it's kind of like SoundCloud as far as like community and like I guess kinds of music go.
Sure.
You have to buy 100 of their Audius tokens to let your profile even show your NFT, the rest of your NFTs.
Yeah.
So I have to like pay a lot of money, not a lot, I guess, but like.
It's still. It's
if you have to like do this like little buy-in to even like show something on your profile.
Yeah.
And like the whole like center of it is the same thing. It's a music platform, but at the base of it, it's still gambling, lottery, earning points and stuff thing.
Yep.
But I don't get paid per stream on any of that.
Right.
But I get the opportunity.
You're just giving them
to show off my NFT collection of my albums and stuff next to my profile. Thank God.
Straight up like paying for exposure. Like that's what it is. And I remember it was a scandal on the online, at least in like 4chan spaces or whatever, when Lotax wanted to start charging people to go on something awful. It was like people were like
people are upset.
Off.
Yeah.
It was like it was a legitimate like early internet scandal, and people hated him, like hated his guts.
That was those were goons, right?
Yeah, they like when he so like the idea of spending money to use a forum was disgusting. It is still disgusting. You're not, because that wasn't the point. The point is it's a free play. Like you could optionally pay to get certain cosmetic shit, but like paying in, that destroyed the idea of discussion. Like if you have to buy in, then you're not getting actual verifiable information. You're getting bot information.
Right.
That's the feeling. Like you're getting bot expertise, or only the people who have money are.
Like with my music, if you want it the full 24 kilobyte, whatever 48 kilohertz stuff or higher, you can't download that from my you have to pay to buy that off Bandcamp.
Right.
Right. Unless it's even if it's a free download. Now, do you?
I feel, aren't there limits like on what you can download if it's like pay what you want or if it's free?
Right.
Like they actually do charge. Like you have to pay some money, I think, to get like really high quality files.
Yeah. So like I can have like the masters to all my music for free using like those album NFTs I bought.
Right.
But if I want anyone to see my stuff, I have to like go join all these crypto communities where it's full of scammers. I'm not sure who's real. So I just end up not talking about it because all my fellow leftist friends are gonna. I know they're gonna like shit talking about it, and then all these other people are just like off the deep end with scam territory or like the cult stuff of it.
Right.
And I just want to be like, I have an actual use case for this. Please don't hate me.
Basically, you realize you have no the even if it wasn't friendly and people were being dicks, like the baseline, just like you can get on a forum and share stuff. It's that option's no longer available to you for this purpose. You're just trying to accomplish something, and your friends aren't with it, and the people who actually can platform, like the people who run the Web 3.0 shit that you can use this for, are suspicious as fuck. So now you have no real option for like where to put this stuff, and that like. If that's a perfect case example of like nobody knows what show me Web 3.0, like it should be what you're talking about.
Well, after MySpace crashed, when Tumblr came around, we were still liking Tumblr because we could customize what our Tumblrs looked like.
Yeah, that's right.
And Facebook was for friends.
Yeah.
If you were in college. And then for everybody who was friends, kind of, I guess. People you met.
It was just finding people, I think.
Tumblr, you could go based off your fan stuff, and then forums were just like you're here for a topic.
Yeah.
And the internet stopped being about topics and started being for, like, chatter.
Yeah.
And I think you already said that.
Well, no, but that connects back anyway. Because, like, Twitter being huge Twitter is just, like, mindless chatter constantly happening, which is why it's, like, fun to get involved with, but also, like, there's not... the fact that it's become like a platform for attempting to communicate ideas, people have pointed out a million times, it's fucking atrocious because it's really just us like small talk at a party happening. If you see somebody like posting like journalists like and have their pages and so on, it's like walking into a party and seeing like an important journalist trying to yell a bunch of information about atrocity happening, and then there's just random assholes like over like right next to you saying shit about like quirked up white boys, and it's disorienting, and it's not the function what you're talking about with like forums, like the 2010s of Twitter or of Tumblr as a sort of blog space, sort of like it was like a sort of like more adaptable blog space, forums for getting actual information, which still like we said still exists. It's just like not people don't really most people don't really use them.
Use what?
Forums.
Right.
It's usually if you're looking for some sort of technical expertise or something. And then Facebook for just like finding people, like somebody you used to know, or just like saying hi to somebody. Because explicitly that's what it was for at first. If you move past the social network Zuckerberg story of it being about rating girls at his college, it like became like finding people.
It's almost like the internet's been around long enough for us to get bored with it.
I think most people are bored by the internet. Like it as the two worlds merged, the fact that the real world sucks, I mean, it's just like they infected each other. And so we're kind of stuck with a cool alternate reality that is like because of increased, I guess, transparency.
Like, I have too much anxiety to go into some of these pinball bars around my neighborhood, but I'll put on my Oculus Quest 2 and play, like, pinball VR and have a great time.
Yeah. That's a good example.
It might be better in real life, but, like, I don't want to go...
Well, you don't know what's going to happen.
Where I don't feel welcome.
It could be dangerous for you to go there. There could be people there who have... issues with you because of stuff.
Because I might have to murder them.
Right, and then like you can't accidentally murder somebody in virtual VR. That's one nice thing about it.
Unless it's one of those games where when you die in the headset, you die in real life.
It's where like if it
goes in the shell.
Yeah, you can wire a gun up to your VR headset so it blows your brains out if you make an off comment. That's the real world experience.
I want a VR game where I can be disemboweled.
Yeah. That would be really cool.
Right. Well,
I mean, I think in summary, the mining 4chan to sell your shit is really fucking goofy, and if you want to look back at the aughts as a period of like nostalgia for the internet, I do understand that you're probably really tired of the way the internet is now. But it's impossible to go back, so you're fucked.
Okay. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you, Mark. Would you mind telling us some of your projects or where we can find you? What do you do all day besides the internet? Do you have a real life?
I have a...
You're not a member of the Gorillas, are you?
I have a simulation of a real life that is mostly running errands and suffering. But it's cool, though. I have a great time. I have a Twitter. It's I think it's Dead Iverson. So yeah, I'm a noise artist. I'm called Dead Iverson on the internet. You can call me that in real life. I don't give a shit. The Twitter is DEAD_IVERSON. N is 2 N's because somebody stole the one with 1 N already. I follow them, but they never post. I have a Bandcamp, which is deadiverson.bandcamp.com, where I post something, or I upload something, noise, and goofy permutations on noisy music. And I'm also have stuff up on the Noise Discord Bandcamp, which is run by Alice, and I'm kind of in there, but she mostly runs it.
I have the passwords and click the submit button, but then Iverson, or Mark rather, is kind of my muse. Like his constant drool of internet theses on my Twitter feed really inspires a lot of my work.
I can't fucking believe I've influenced somebody. It's really terrible news.
Well, yeah, that's why you're my first guest. You're like,
oh, good God,
the Kenny G of noise. So.
Oh my God, that's pretty cool though. I'll accept that. I have no hair. He has hair.
Well, things can change.
Things can change.
I
can get Weird Al hair.
Anyway, you've been listening to Memetic Rhetoric Podcast. I'm Alice, and you can find me at scarletdeath.com. I do run the Noise Music Discord server. That's good news. Noise music. We discuss things in a chat room format, but not like forums. It's all just, oh, listen to my noise album, or hey, do you like this pedal? That's about it. Oh, and Merzbow?
Merzbow.
Yeah.